lined up for Christine already? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Maybe just waited to.
I only walked up on that little bit of it.
Even after.
Okay.
I'm just a problem solver.
Did they shoot him there?
Hey, Wayne, good morning.
They didn't?
All right. That's all right.
Let the fun begin.
Yeah.
What are we shopping for?
Yeah, depends what's on sale. Depends what's on sale, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is from Lisa.
I know, it's so fun.
Yeah. Wait, no, Bobby and Whit.
Not me.
No, not you. You're here.
Yes. I don't want to get in trouble.
No, never. Okay.
They would like this read into the record, that's their speaking turn, their comment.
Okay. Okay. Nope. I'll keep it together.
I need three. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's call this to order, so. It's time, so I'm going to call the regular city council meeting of the city of Colleyville for April the 16th, 2019 to order at 7:31. So we're now in order. And I need to call the roll first thing. So Councilmember Nakamura,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindemood,
Here.
Councilmember Wheat,
Here.
the mayor's here, Councilmember Dodson,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
So we will open with an invocation, as we always do, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Jay Franks of Compass Christian Church is going to do our invocation. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, today we are grateful for just another day of life. We're grateful for this Easter week, truly the miracle of Easter, as we celebrate as churches and community. We pray for this week, that it truly will be one of unity and one of just a time of really getting together and just being with family and friends. God, today, thank you for these men and women who serve our city. We pray today that you will just guide them and lead them to make the best decisions for our community and for all of us. Father, thank you for truly a country where we can come together, we can serve others, and we can pray to you. And so today we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, let me welcome all of you here. I thank you for coming. And Pastor, thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming and offering the invocation. So, as I always do, we will have some items on tonight that has public hearings. You're welcome to speak at any of those public hearings. To help us out, it helps if you fill a card out and bring it up indicating the item that you want to speak on. But even if you don't, I will not close a public hearing without asking if everyone has spoken that would like to. So I don't want to leave anyone out. So we just came out of executive session, as we always do right before this meeting. And tonight we do have a resolution, so we do need to take an action based on our discussion in executive session. So we will go to agenda item 2, and that's reading and public hearing of resolution R-19-4371, a resolution approving council action regarding executive session items at the regular city council meeting of April the 16th, 2019. Whereas following discussion in executive session and in full accordance with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council determines that the following action is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the City Council hereby approves and authorizes the City Manager to execute the Economic Development Agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A with Bellissimo Italian Restaurant and Pizza, providing a business enhancements to support transformation, best grant in the amount of $10,000, and it is so resolved. Adrian, you want to brief us on this?
Thank you, Mayor. We're excited to have Eddie from Bellissimo's. Obviously, those are familiar with Bellissimo's being a longtime Colleyville restaurant and participant here in the Colleyville community. And they found a new location in the former Rice King location here in Colleyville. And they are looking to open and want to beautify their new space. So as a part of our Best Grant program, they are looking to have enhanced signage, awnings, and just overall refresh of their property, and we're excited to welcome them opening back up here in Colleyville.
Yes, we do. I get questions all the time about when is Bellissimo's going to open back up, so we're glad that they're going to do that soon. And there's no other questions by the council. I'm going to go open a public hearing. I hear none, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I know I don't have any cards because nobody knew we were going to have this. Anybody wish to speak on this item at the public hearing, you're welcome to.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Claudia Bevel. I live at 119 Cheeksburger. I just wanted to say how thankful I am and how proud I am for Bellissimo, and I want to thank them for reestablishing their wonderful restaurant here in Colleyville. That's all. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I see no one indicating they wish to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Council, you can talk about it more, or a motion is in order.
Just thank you to Bellissimo's. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Staying home.
Yeah, I think it'll be great for Colleyville.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R-19-4371. I'll second.
We have a motion to approve that resolution by Councilmember Nakamura, a second by Councilmember Wheat. So with that, would you open the vote, please, ma'am? And you may show it when it's ready. That motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Look forward to Bellissimo's. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 3, which is announcements, proclamations, and presentations. And we always start with announcements, so we'll do that tonight. And we do have a few announcements tonight. Every month when we get the sales tax report from the state, I always comment on that myself. And so we just recently got the sales tax allocation information, which reflects the purchases made in February. So these reports are always 2 months in arrears. This is the 5th month for the sales tax being reported in this fiscal year, which starts in October. And so it's good news, again. The 1 cent general fund and the half-cent Colleyville Economic Development Corporation sales tax are up 4.56% compared to the same month a year ago. And the 1/2 cent Colleyville Crime Control and Prevention District is up 5.58% compared to the same month last year. So overall, for the year to date, we're up about just under 2%, I think. So we started off the first month or so a little down, which is kind of a trend, but we're headed up again, so we're already at close to 2%, not quite 2%. And we, of course, have done a lot of promotions that I've talked about often. It's really part of our economic development strategy to help our businesses. The one that we have underway right now is the GCISD PTA receipt race. It ends April the 30th. So we hopefully sales will continue to go up, but you know, we do these promotions, sales tax go up. I think there's a correlation there. And I really appreciate the PTA parents and teachers and students who go collect all those receipts. I think it does make a difference, and it's a great partnership between the city and the school and the PTAs, and I really appreciate all of them. And we will be recognizing the winners of that receipt race at the May 7th council meeting. And so first prize is $5,000, second prize is $3,000, third prize is $2,000 this year. That money goes directly to the PTAs at the schools, whoever collects the most, second and third most receipts. And everybody that participates gets $500. So all the PTAs do. So I just want to comment too, since I'm talking about the programs, once that program wraps up, that's one of our quarterly promotion programs, and we've been running those. This is how many is this one now? Fifth? This is the fifth one. So just, we talked tonight about, we intend to do another one, and they come up with our staff is very creative on these acronyms. So this one is going to be to help businesses with smaller things. It's going to be called Sign Improvements to Get You Noticed. Of course, the acronym is SIGN, S-I-G-N. And this will focus on businesses in Colleyville, and it'll be like a one-for-one matching grant program up to $5,000 to help them with new signs and signage enhancements. We'll have more details on that soon. We actually have a couple of applications right now. One we just voted on for Bellisimo's, which was under the BEST program, but Buttermilk Sky has made an application, and their application would seem to fit the new upcoming sign program very well, because it's for a sign, it's a smaller amount of money. And so we look forward to helping them. Just a comment, I think we also have this program called BEST. That's an ongoing, it's not a quarterly promotion, it's ongoing. That's the grant program where we can grant businesses up to $100,000. It's like a 3-to-1. They put in money and we match their money for larger items. We've had several applicants for that and have actually funded several of those. But all of these programs are built around a couple of things. One, helping the businesses be successful, which I think they're doing a good job of. And it's all centered around excellence in terms of sign, look, because there's even another one after the sign that's going to be focused on landscaping that fits in with when Highway 26 is done, and we're going to be doing a lot of things to beautify 26 as part of that. I'm not going to tell you the acronym for that one. Well, I'll ask the city manager. So if I'm a business, I ask him this, and if I have shrubs and grass and stuff that's dying and I need help, what are you going to do?
We're here to help.
There you go. What does that stand for?
Highway Enhancement Landscaping Program.
You remembered. I'm impressed. Very good.
Yes, sir. Well,
Anyway.
if it doesn't, it does now.
Yeah.
But the idea behind that program is, as you've said, we have businesses that are exceptional in every way. And with the 26 construction coming to an end, we'd like to work with them to further their street approach and their elevation, and doing so with these 3 different programs allows them to focus on their building, their signage, and their landscaping.
Yeah, and I'll just say one last thing. I'm proud of Colleyville. I'm impressed with what's been done along 26 in terms of our businesses, because they've hung in there. We actually have a 94% commercial occupancy rate, which is exceedingly high. South Lake only has 92, and that's with Highway 26 going on. So they're doing well. They're cooperating well. We're helping them. So I'll shut up, let somebody else make announcements.
I have an update on the City Plaza. Last week, staff and our team from Freeze and Nichols held a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting for all contractors interested in bidding on the Plaza project. We had great attendance with 12 different general contractors represented. Bids for the Plaza are scheduled to be opened on April 23rd and presented to the council May 7th. We have included liquidated damages in the contract to emphasize the importance of the project completion by early mid-November.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Well, so if your kids like to fish and you like Arbor Days, we'll stop by the Colleyville Nature Center on Saturday, April the 27th, from 10 a.m. to noon to celebrate Arbor Day with the Parks and Recreation Department. We will have Shoal Creek, Vitex, Langerstone, Centennial Spirit. Is that close? Boy, give me the hard
You'll
one,
get to
right?
explain it in a minute.
Yeah, and some trees and sawtooth oaks available, 2 per family for the first 250 people. We will also have Arbor Day T-shirts while the supplies last, so please come on out.
You can show the T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
Some more.
I'll have one.
Oh, look at this.
I think we're waiting for her.
Oh, we're waiting for her. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm going to do a proclamation.
I'm blaming that one on him.
That's
We're
my
waiting
fault.
for what?
He'll get you in trouble.
Every time.
Every time.
So we're not waiting on anything from Lisa right now? Okay, well, first, I want to thank everybody for coming out to the Colleyville Women's Club Fashion Show on Friday. Every single one of the city council people were here, their spouses, minus one, and she was not available, or she would have been there. We had the city manager and members of his family came in from out of town. We had Adrian, we had Mark, we had the police chief, we had Ray, the public works director. So the whole city was represented there, and we appreciate everybody, as it was a sold-out day for the Colleyville Women's Club, and I think a lot of money was raised. So we appreciate everybody. Look forward to next year.
You know what, I also meant to tell you that there's going to be the little anglers out there. They're going to have some catfish ponds that's going to be fished. They're going to supply the poles and baits, and trophies will be awarded by the age groups.
Yeah.
You know, those little people need to come on out. There'll be door prizes. And there's a Colleyville student that I recognized on Facebook today, and the Nature Center, Amelia Phoenix, a fourth grade student.
Glen Hope student. I want
Glen
everyone to know.
Hope.
Yeah.
Glen Hope, raise your hand right now. She organized 30 students along to go out and start cleaning up the Colleyville Nature Center. This event is taking place as part of the field trip outstanding for students taking part in the Aspire program. And now, I think it was supposed to be yesterday or tomorrow at noon, but it's now been moved to May the 1st at noon because of the bad weather that's coming on. So thank you so much, Amelia. We appreciate you.
It's exciting. So I've got a few things I'd like to mention. First, a big special thank you to Deanne Rhodes and the Colleyville Garden Club for their interest in donating an Arizona cypress to the city, and specifically for planting it at the Colleyville Center in honor of Arbor Day. There is going to be a short dedication service or ceremony on April 24th at 11:30 a.m. outside the Colleyville Center. So this is in addition to the $10,000 donation to the center for a fountain and landscaping for the Bluebonnet Garden Courtyard, which is going to be a really neat addition, and we really thank you all at the Colleyville Garden Club for that. And I have a second announcement I'd like to mention, which is this last week, the Colleyville leadership team volunteered to work a few hours at the 2019 Classic Golf Tournament hosted by the Grapevine Colleyville Education Foundation. This wonderful event benefits the students and teachers at GCISD, and I feel very fortunate, and I know everyone in the city does, to have such an exceptional school district and exceptional leadership staff here on the city that want to work hard for our students and all the educators.
That's
so
right.
Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
And I get to talk about concerts in the village.
Yeah.
Please come and have fun with family, friends, and free music Friday, April 26th at 7 p.m. in front of City Hall. The April 26th concert will feature the Trinity River Ramblers playing authentic American music with an edge and energy that will make you notice. They'll be covering a wide range of favorites, including Pat Green, Robert Earl Keen, Van Morrison, Jimmy Buffett, and the Rolling Stones.
Nice.
Attendees are encouraged to bring blankets or chairs to sit on the lawn. The concert is family-friendly and free. No ticket or advance registration is required, so come on out.
Yeah, and I attended the music concert last Friday, and it was amazing. Just great country western players, and we had a crowd of probably 60 or 70 people out there. So these are great musicians out here, and an opportunity for you to come and bring your family, bring something to eat or picnic or whatever you want to do. So it's a great time by all. And I'm going to talk about the drug take-back. It's an opportunity for the Colleyville Police Department and the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, will give the public opportunity to prevent pill abuse and theft by ridding their homes of potentially dangerous, expired, unused, or unwanted prescription drugs. Community members can bring their pills for disposal from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday the 27th at the Senior Center. The DEA cannot accept liquids or needles or sharps. Only pills or patches are allowed. The service is free and anonymous. No questions asked. The Colleyville Police are offering a drive-through service there on the west end of the Colleyville Senior Center. So it's from 10 o'clock until 2 p.m. on Saturday, the 27th. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thanks, George. And I have one last thing to talk about. I need to let the council know about this. We had a meeting with the Colleyville Baseball Association last week, who was attended by quite a few. Council member Callie Rigney was there. I was there. Jerry Duque was there. Adrian Lothery was there. Lisa Escobedo, park director, was there. And the site manager for the parks was there too. And from the Colleyville Baseball Association, it was the President, John Hosapple, Vice President Troy Hanson, Commissioner Michael Wang, Treasurer Allison Love, and Jay Finnegan, who is one of the coach two select teams. He's not on the leadership team, but he's very active in the Colleyville Baseball Association. We asked for that meeting for a couple of reasons. One, the city, we're just now starting our budget cycle, which we will start now, and it runs through actually September. We approved the budget in September. And so we wanted to be sure we were aligning our capital program with what the Colleyville Baseball Association is wanting to do, short-term and long-term. And so we talked about that. We talked about several things, the importance of foul ball safety, new scoreboards, field maintenance, and in more detail, we talked about those things, and we asked them if they would put together their information, send it in to us, their priority list, so that as we're going through our budget, we could align those two things and see how far down that list we could get. So they're going to do that. We'll have another meeting to discuss those items in some detail. But in this meeting, it was interesting. We did make some decisions on a couple of things. 2 years ago, the Softball Association wanted their school boards changed out, and so they were changed with new school boards. And the city paid for half of that. The association paid for half. The city paid for the installation. So the Colleyville Baseball Association had the opportunity 2 years ago. They chose not to take it. They do want to do it now. So we're going to do the same deal. We'll pay for half the school board cost. They'll pay for half, and the city will pay for the installation. And that will be done as soon as practical. You know, this summer?
Yeah, summer months, right after baseball
Okay.
season, so
Yeah.
July.
Yeah, and the other thing on foul ball safety, they wanted some more screening for the fields, and so we'll be looking at that. And they talked about something that really impressed me as an organization. They talked about their organizational strategic pillars, and what those are is safety, respect, and branding. I really thought that was neat because the idea is, one, safety is number one for everybody. Two, respect. They want to be able to teach the players as they play and participate, respect, and the things that we talked about as examples of them participating with field maintenance between games and having the kids do a lot of that. And so we will be talking a lot more about that and providing some capability for them to do that easier as we go forward. I learned something else in this meeting too, is there's been discussion about the fields and how they look from the grass perspective and the weed perspective. And 2 years ago, for all our fields, all the baseball fields, soccer fields, the city converted to an organic approach. So there were no chemicals used. I do that at my home, and it's a different result when you do that. There will be some level of weeds there when you do that. And so that's something we will be looking into and talking about. How do we proceed with that as we go forward? We'll be talking about that more with them and us. That could be a council policy decision. We'll see. So anyway, it was a great meeting. I appreciated it. Great relationship with them. Did I miss anything?
No, sir.
I think that's
No.
it.
Okay. So anyway, that was it. I think that's all the announcements. With that, we have two more things to do. One is a proclamation. It's a proclamation in recognition of Arbor Day. And so if Lisa Escobedo will join me, we'll talk about that. And then we have featured business of the month. Okay, Arbor Day. This is, they stole some of your thunder already, I think. I'm gonna let Lisa talk first before I talk.
This is the 21st year that the city of Colleyville has been recognized as Tree City USA. So we're really proud of that recognition. And in honor of that, we will be having our Arbor Day celebration, as they said, on April the 27th. We will be passing out tree saplings. In layman's term, it's crepe myrtles and vitex trees and oaks. So please, if you are available and it's not in the weather's cooperating, please come out to our event. We're really looking forward to it. In addition to that, we have a number of different projects in the Parks Department this year that we will be enhancing and planting trees throughout the city in a number of different areas, especially along the Cotton Belt Trail. So those will be some of the tree planting projects that will be throughout this upcoming year. So just enhancing the city and encouraging Arbor Day and Tree City USA. Yes, we will also be we will be passing out our Arbor Day shirts, as well as the tree saplings will come in the cup. So it'll also give you a demonstration of how you plant it until it's big enough to plant out into your yard.
Cool. Great. We've always been very proud of being Tree City USA. That's 21 years now. That's goes by fast, doesn't it? I was in office back then. So I got a proclamation for this. Let me read it. Whereas the city of Colleyville is committed to the citizens of Colleyville working together to improve the community and the environment by planting trees and teaching others about environmental stewardship. And whereas the city of Colleyville is proud of its natural resources and neighborhoods and seeks to protect and improve our community through the action of citizens, schools, governments, and businesses working together. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Martin proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. This holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and Arbor Day is observed throughout the world and has become a day dedicated to the beauty, usefulness, and preservation of trees. And whereas the city of Colleyville is celebrating their 21st year of being designated a Tree City USA community. Now, therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, on behalf of the Colleyville City Council, do hereby proclaim April the 26th, 2019, as the official Arbor Day in Colleyville, and call upon our citizens to promote responsible environmental stewardship and help us renew our commitment to building a better world today for the future generations. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed this 16th day of April 2019. I'll present that to you. Thank you, Lisa. You do a great job. Appreciate it. Awesome. Now, our featured business of the month. So I'm proud to recognize Julie Gerard, and you guys will come up. And this is Padre Island Pools. Pirate. Pirate. We had a good time at the Colleyville Women's Fashion Show. It was a great event. So you've been in business here 12 years in the Terra Center. Wait, I'm going to let Adrian say a few words.
We just wanted to thank you for having your business here in the city of Colleyville. We know that Pirate Island Pools offers a wide variety of services, and this is the perfect time to highlight your business leading into summer months. A lot of folks may be dusting off their patio furniture and getting ready to enjoy some pool season, which inevitably means there might need to be some pool maintenance that occurs. So for any of those needs, you can give Pirate Island Pools a call. I'm sure you can help service any of those things to get them pool ready for the summertime. And we just want to give you a chance to highlight your business and talk about a few of the things that you all offer that folks might not be aware of. And thank you for being here.
Well, I'm a full-service pool company. The only thing we don't do is we don't do any type of remodeling, but I have partners that I can refer you to. And I don't do any advertising. Everything I do is word of mouth and referrals. So I'd like to take a moment to thank all my friends for City Council for constantly referring my business. And I'm hoping that we provide great customer service. If you love your pool company, I don't want to encourage you
you to change, especially if it's your husband. But don't. Please feel free to give us a try. We love Colleyville. I love our community, and thank you for this honor.
All right.
I tell you, you don't make a successful business without advertising, without offering great service.
That's right.
So you do a great job. We really appreciate you being in Colleyville. We appreciate your business, and we appreciate you. You do so much in this community.
You bet.
And
Yes, you do.
Very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, with that, we'll move to agenda item number 4, which is the consent resolution. So this will be a reading and public hearing, Resolution R-19-4372, a resolution approving city council action under consent items at the regular city council meeting of April 16, 2019. Whereas city council has taken action on certain items on the agenda under consent items. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the agenda decisions approved by city council action under consent items as follows are hereby adopted. A, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of April 2nd, 2019. Pretty simple resolution. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open.
No cards.
Don't have any cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? You're welcome to. I see no one indicating that, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. The motion is in order.
I will move the adoption of Resolution R-19-4372.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Dodson, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood. Would you open the vote, please? You may show it when it's ready. Well, that motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. We'll now move to agenda item 5. Agenda item 5 is not an item for action. It's our monthly financial report. So we do this in public so that we can all hear it and everybody can hear it. Assistant City Manager Mark Wood.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Wood, Assistant City Manager. Tonight, I'm going to give you the financial report for the monthly financial report for March of 2019. And what this financial report represents is 50% of the city's fiscal year. So the city's fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th, so we're at the midway point. The staff right now is in budget mode. Departments are submitting their budgets, and one of the things that we look at when projecting budgets for next year is kind of this halfway point, where are the revenues at, where are the expenditures at, and that helps us with our budgeting. So this is a real key month for the staff as we go through the budget process for the fiscal year. So in terms of the general fund, we're in great shape. The revenue for the fiscal year today is $19.4 million. Expenditures are at right at $12 million. So we're right on budget in terms of expenditures, and we're exceeding the budget for the revenue side. We would expect that. Property tax, as you can see on the right-hand side, is at just over 99% collection rate, which is historically what we'd see at this point, which is a very good rate. And so with that, revenues exceed expenditures by $7.3 million. So a very healthy position for the general fund. On the right-hand side, I just want to point out, I've mentioned the property tax. I also want to mention the sales tax, which you can see here reflects purchases through January. Last month, I said that we were going to adjust because sales tax are 2 months behind. Yeah. We're going to adjust the report so you can see the purple bar for the other portions of this chart represent 50%. The purple bar in the sales tax represents 33%, which is the portion of the budget that the sales tax for this report represents. So you can see we're right on track with our budget for sales tax. The next slide I'll show you shows the updated numbers that the mayor mentioned earlier, that it continues to be very good news for the city. The 2 points I want to make on this slide, if you look at the left-hand side where it says February month earned, April received. So we received these collections from the state last Thursday. And again, as the mayor mentioned, very good news for the city. The general fund sales tax is up 4.56%. With the ongoing construction, we continue to see positive numbers, and we're very pleased with those. If you look back over the last year and a half or so, the sales tax trend we've seen, as you mentioned, Mayor, when we started rolling out these quarterly programs, we've really seen an uptick in sales tax. So we kind of ingest, say, maybe these programs had something to do with it. I truly believe that they do. At least bring about awareness of shopping locally and helping out our businesses and shopping local first.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so the other point I want to make is on the right hand side of this slide, you can see the cumulative for the year. And what you see is we're about 1.8% above last year. So we're in a very, very good position. And we continue to see sales increase. And we continue to believe that will increase with the receipt race and the other programs that we're doing. In terms of the utility fund, again, we're in a good position with this as well. Revenue currently exceed expenditures by $200,000. Base rates for the water and sewer are right on track with the budget, as we would expect. Again, the base rates are what the city charges customers, what it costs us to put the utility on. And that's what those rates are. The volumetric rates for water and sewer are pass-through rates. We pay TRA, and we pass those rates on to the customers, and it's a straight pass-through rate. We anticipate water to increase even now as lawns are starting to become more and more frequently watered as it gets hotter, and especially into the summer and fall, we'll continue to see that increase.
Well, it's down right now because all the rain.
Yeah,
We're
expecting more tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Getting a lot of rain. That's great.
Absolutely. We have, for the fiscal year to date, we've got 199 more customers than we did the same period last year. And then our water usage is down 15%, or 130 million gallons compared to the same period last year. So that rain could be contributing to that. Moving to the debt service fund. Really, most of the activity is complete in this fund for the fiscal year. We do have another ambulance payment to make in June, which is $49,000. And so once we make that payment, we'll have made most of the payments in this fund. Again, we use the debt service fund to pay for fire apparatus, so our fire trucks and ambulances. And so we utilize that kind of creatively with paying for those pieces of equipment. In terms of the drainage fund, and this is the last fund that I'll review tonight. Again, it's on track with the budget. The revenues are up about 1.3%. This is where we're paying for the drainage study that's currently underway and that the consultant is diligently working on. And so we'll continue to fund that through this fund. And again, this also funds pieces of equipment such as the street sweeper that you'll see throughout town. And we try to connect the usage of pieces of equipment and projects to the fund. And so we've branded the street sweeper with paid for by the drainage fund, and try to utilize creativity to connect residents with what their dollars are used for. That concludes the monthly financial report.
Anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to say something. Speaking of the street sweeper, we actually, a person called me yesterday talking about Bedford Road when it floods.
Yeah.
They're amazed at how fast they get out with that new street sweeper and clean these flooded areas up. So hats off to those guys over at that department for what you do.
Mr. Mayor, one thing we're going to also try to get out and do, hopefully this week, is sweep the trail. We know we've got a lot of mud that's occurred on the trail because of the recent rains, and we want to get that swept. We'll see how tomorrow's weather impacts that, but hopefully we'll be out at the end of this week or sometime next week to get that done.
Yeah, great. So we're in great financial shape. Deal.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Good. Thank you.
Only been blessed.
So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 6A, which is the second reading and public hearing of an ordinance on Chapter 2 definitions. Mayor Pro Tem suggested, last time, it took a little while to go through that. You suggested we move that to the end?
If you don't mind, please, sir.
That's fine with
If the
me.
council's
Anybody have a
okay with it.
problem with moving that one too? Is there anyone here wishing to speak on agenda item 6? I kind of doubt it, but I'm just checking.
They want to get home before 2.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, since that may take us a while, we're gonna move that down, so y'all don't have to
You'll be glad
sit
we
through
did,
that.
yeah.
So the next one then is 7A. Let me get to that. And this is reading and public hearing of Resolution R-19-4373. So this is a resolution approving a request for a major variance to allow for the construction of a fence to encroach into the required front yard setback located at 1117 Joe Carroll Lane. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the variance to allow the construction of a fence to encroach into the required front yard setback located at 1117 Joe Carroll Lane, the property as depicted in Exhibit A hereto is hereby approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, and so there's no condition in there yet. So that's Section 2, that the resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage, providing that the variance for the property shall become effective immediately upon the conditions stated herein being fully satisfied, and it is so resolved. So this is an unusual one. So, Ben, you want to brief us?
Yes. Thank you. Ben Briner, Director of Community Development. This is our inaugural major variance request, the first one that you guys have seen. If you recall, we made some changes to Chapter 1 and actually identified 2 types of variances, major and minor. So if a request varies less than 10% of the regulation, then that would be a minor variance, which is still heard by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Anything greater than 10% would be a major variance, which has to receive approval from the City Council. So this is a major variance request to some provisions of our fencing section within Chapter 3, Section 3.26. What the applicant is requesting is a variance to allow for the construction of a 6-foot wrought iron fence to encroach into the 30-foot required front yard setback. So the fence, as proposed, would be located on the property line at 1117 Joe Carroll Lane. So here's an aerial photo of the site. There is a new house being constructed on this property currently, and they are requesting to build a fence pretty much along the entire perimeter. The property is zoned R20. It has, it's more than 20,000 square feet, but less than 40,000 square feet. We do have an exemption that allows for perimeter fences in the front yard, but only on property with 40,000 square feet or more. This does not have that square footage.
It's 25,000, Ben.
25,000. It is planned for residential, so it does comply with the designation there. This is the actual ordinance language. So again, no fence or freestanding wall greater than 30 inches in height and no greater than 25% opaque construction shall extend into the required yard on which the primary surface faces. So basically, no fence allowed in the front yard. And that is what they are requesting. Here's the zoning exhibit that was provided to us. And I've highlighted different portions. So the green would be a wood fence along the side and the rear. That would be okay. And then blue is highlighting where they want to install a 6-foot wrought iron fence. The area in question that would require a variance, I've highlighted in red for you. So this would be the front yard area. So it cannot extend closer than the front yard setback without a variance.
Can I ask a clarifying question? It shows a gate, maybe those are 2 driveways. Would the gate be included in the variance, or is the gate acceptable without a variance?
The gate is separate. We do require a 20-foot setback, or it might be 25 feet, but there is a required setback from the edge of the street to the gate itself, basically enough space to allow for a vehicle to pull off the street while the gate opens. So we would not be approving a variance to the gate itself, just for the.
But the gate itself would be allowed without a variance? That's what I guess I want to understand. Or the gate?
Not on the front.
That's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure I understand which way that goes. Okay.
Right. So everything that's highlighted red requires a
Okay.
variance.
So gate or no gate?
Gate or no gate.
Part of variance. Thank you.
Ben, another quick question. Why does the setback also not apply to the corner side?
So in the Land Development Code, it talks about privacy fence. And that is a fence that is greater than 25% opaque. Since this is a wrought iron fence, less than 25% opaque, it is allowed on the property line, what is considered a street side.
Go back one slide, please. I think it, well, another one. I want to see the overview from above showing the other lots.
The aerial photo?
Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
So see the house just to the left of the red square?
Right.
That house faces Joe Carroll Lane, correct?
Yes.
So I think our ordinances say you have to comply on a house on a corner like that, that side yard has to comply with that front yard setback for fences there.
Only when it's considered a privacy fence, which is the greater than 25% opaque.
Okay.
There'll be a chance later.
Yeah, there'll be a public hearing, so anyone can speak.
As part of our review, we did identify an alternate location where the fence can be installed that would not require a variance, and so I've highlighted that here in the purple. Along the front property line, I'm sorry, the setback along the front property line, and then as it gets to the side, extending back out to the adjacent property line there.
That was not our intent, for sure.
I know, because they had a height, yeah.
Yeah. We may have missed that. That was not our intent.
Yeah.
Our intent was
And
clearly.
we had a lot of conversation, and I tried to explain that as best as I could, that there is a difference between a privacy fence
Yeah.
and a non-privacy fence.
Yes, but the
Yeah.
yes, and the allowance for the lower fence, lower open fence was something that had been around for a while.
Right.
But, okay.
So with major variances, this is the language associated with that. There should be some type of hardship justified for the variance, something that would not be to relieve a self-created or personal hardship, nor for financial reason only, and then not granted to permit a person a privilege in developing a parcel not permitted by the ordinance for other parcels. And again, anything greater than a 10% deviation would be a major variance needing to be approved by the city council. We did send our notice out to properties within 500 feet. We did receive one response back in favor, which was included in your packet. Staff does recommend denial. We did not find a hardship, and it does not differ from other parcels of land in the same district. With that, I can answer any questions.
Any other question for Ben?
No. Would you put the picture of, no, that one? Yeah, just if you could leave that up there, that'd be good. Thank you.
Thought we pushed all corner sides back.
So Ben, the blue is the wrought iron fence, right?
Correct.
So coming out to the front, anything in front of the building?
So the front would be looking to the right-hand side.
Understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben, one more question. Is there any limitation on the corner side height?
Yes,
Or
8 feet.
So the height, that's the lower height only applies to the front yard? The corner side doesn't apply as well?
As far as allowing in the front to
In the
the
permitted.
property line, it could only be 30 inches tall.
Right, and that doesn't apply to the corner side?
No.
Why not?
We didn't
Because of the size, right?
change it.
Well-
Based on it with the, it's not qualifying as a privacy fence.
Well, yeah, but, so, I think there's some areas we need to discuss, because the reason for, and there was always restriction on the example here, we have a side yard on a corner and a house next to it that's front, that you couldn't allow, you could have a 3-foot fence, decorative type fence, but that's all. I can tell you, as a member of the council, I had in changing that, I had no intention for to deviate from that. So I don't know where the confusion was. Everybody else can speak for themselves, because it doesn't make any sense to me. If we don't allow it in front of this house, why would we penalize the guy next door and allow it in his front view of his house?
Correct.
That may be a separate discussion.
No, it's important.
Yeah.
Very important, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mayor, just to let you know.
Yeah.
I struggle with that lining of street over there on the side with the neighbor too, that's set back off the road. And
Yeah.
What's the zoning on this lot?
R20.
Was that a rule that we changed when we changed this code? I thought it was R30 and larger that could have front yard fences. Was that something we changed?
R40.
No,
R40 and
it
larger.
doesn't really,
Yeah.
it's not based on the zoning, it's based on the size of the property. You need 40,000 square feet
Right.
to have a fence along the front property.
Yeah.
So this purple line, this alternate location within compliance, that's allowed without any,
Correct.
so how, is that not a front yard fence? Maybe I'm confused. That's what it looks like to me.
Right, the requirement shall not extend into the required yard on which the primary surface faces. So the 25-foot yard is established for this lot, so it cannot be closer than that 25-foot established yard.
So technically, the way that the codes are written, any size lot could have a front yard fence if it fits within its appropriate setback, is what you're saying?
Yes.
As long as it met the front setback,
Okay.
yes.
I just want to make sure I understand all these.
Yes.
And the
Logistical
measure of the
issues.
distance back from the road is not the structure, it's the setback. So if you wanted it to be, because the structures
Yeah.
can be set back differently than the front yard setback requirement.
Yeah,
That's your building line.
I gotta say, I'm gonna be perfectly honest here. We did a lot of, for everybody that's listening to this, we did a lot of work working on these ordinances, and this was one. And in all those discussions and reading it, and maybe this is my error, I don't know, but I never in a million years would have said that we approved something that allowed a fence in the front yard, period, other than a decorative fence
Right.
that was 3 feet or smaller, that was not opaque. So there was always that height deal. So there's some,
Under an
some,
acre,
pardon?
for lots under.
Yeah, for lots under an acre, yeah. I mean, the reason I say all that, I mean, we've had situations where we were required people to take fences down recently.
That's right.
And so I'm unsettled by this, I guess.
Yeah, we can't
Uh,
approve, I wouldn't
yeah.
vote to approve it, that's for sure.
Yeah,
An issue
'Cause
for
we
me
we
is
required them to take it down.
yeah.
is
Now,
what
that
the-
was for a solid fence.
What?
That was
No.
for a privacy fence.
Yeah,
No.
but what we're talking about, Ben, is, it's clearly there was some miscommunication among us, I guess.
Sure.
And-
That's incorrect. It was actually a wrought iron fence on top of a
Yes.
stone wall.
Yeah,
It was on Rose Street. We had them
But
take
it-
it down.
But it
Yeah.
was also on the right of way.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was.
And they had a parking spot out front
Yeah.
as well, a rock
Sure.
parking spot.
Yeah.
Second house.
Oh, right, well, so that was less than 40,000 square.
Yes,
feet.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's the one I think everybody was talking
Okay,
And I
about.
think,
Yes, sir.
there's been a few, but I remember that one.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And if this house had built to the build line, it would not have been as much of an issue.
Right.
But because they're set back further on what is deemed their front
Yeah.
yard setback,
Yeah.
there is area in front of the home that is still within that setback.
And this isn't considered, I mean, I know a fence is not an accessory structure, but that's the kind of thing that I would normally
Yeah, I
think
mean,
is what we would put in a build line, not a fence.
well,
I don't know, this is
yeah,
just,
I mean,
this is
the
really
answer for these kinds of
touching
things
apart.
is what you do is you say that the fence shall not protrude past the elevation of the primary structure or the setback line, whichever's greater.
Yeah.
And that way the fence would stop at the house. But having said that, the issue is that apparently we didn't prohibit the wrought iron or the 25% open. We only prohibited the solid screening fence.
What's-
Solid.
Because I agree with you, Mayor, the intent was
Anything
to
greater
have.
than 25% opaque.
Right. But the intent of our discussion was to create that setback in such a way so as any fence would be pushed back and in line with
Yeah.
the front yard setback of the neighboring home. And in this case, it would actually be up to the edge of the
the edge of the
structure.
line,
Yeah. Now, on the front yard setback, it would not have. And so then the second comment is, or push back to the front of the primary structure, which then would have allowed for the fence even to be further back.
Yeah.
But
Right.
someone putting a fence in front of their home, unless you just prohibit it in general, you're always gonna have situations like this where they're operating within the setback, and there's gonna be challenges.
Yeah.
You'd almost have to prohibit any fence in the front yard at all, or in the corner side yard at all, to eliminate that from ever happening. Because if your lot's big enough, you can push the structure back and still be able to include the fence.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
An issue for me is I feel like it would block visibility for the oncoming traffic for the neighbors pulling out of their driveways as well.
Well, that's one of the
Especially
reasons
with
why it had to be
landscaping.
open, but yeah, you're right, 'cause that's what we got, before we had problems with privacy fences that were there, and they created that exact problem you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, so, let me try to summarize where we're at. A little unusual situation where we have an interpretation of an ordinance by our director one way, the intent of the council was different, but it's there. This resolution is for variance. This resolution has to do with the red line. Do we approve that or not?
Right.
And then the discussion has been about, well, there's other blue line, is that acceptable or not? And so that's, we're not, I don't know how to resolve that one, because that's an interpretation of an ordinance and possibly an ordinance change. So I'll ask you, Mr. City Attorney. So I'm kind of going off track a little bit to deal with the ordinance part of it. So we seem to have an ordinance that is written in a way that we did not have it, there was not an intention to have it being written that way. And that's something we recently did. Do we have any recourse, what's our course of action, if any? I mean, I know we can go back and change it, that takes time. and
Right.
effort.
The course of action is that, Mayor and Council, it would be to amend the ordinance, because the ordinance, prior amendments that we recently have been passed, they've been published, they've been approved, they
Yeah.
are now a part of the zoning.
Right.
So an additional amendment moving forward with a new application, new motion on council would be in order.
Okay. Well, what that means then is we could, if the council chooses, and we haven't finished this whole process, but if the council chooses to turn this resolution down, then what is shown there with the purple dotted line and the blue line is what would comply with ordinance, as what our development director says, which could then be built.
Correct.
However, is there a possibility for us to amend the ordinance for this situation?
You'd have to rescind it somehow. I mean, so the city attorney said, hey, it's passed. You can always change something,
Sure.
but takes further action.
Then this would have been allowed under the previous standards as well, wouldn't it have? With
we
the
even-
privacy. So you could, it was actually, it's better, it previously could have been a privacy fence
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
on the
No.
corner,
No.
No,
couldn't-
corner side.
No,
it would
couldn't
have to be
been.
wrought iron.
Because the site, yeah, it seems to me like, you know, the fence really should stop at,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
Green.
corner, the left corner of the building.
Yeah.
That's the front. And then it could start again over here at the
Yes.
right bottom. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, because the city manager, what you said, that blue fence wouldn't have been allowed at all. The fence had to get moved over here on Bransford because of that same reason. It had to go back to that build line.
In the front yard.
Well, on the side yard, had a house next door that had a front yard, so he had to come back to the build line of that lot, which is that dotted line, right?
It did, it was a solid fence, though.
Yeah, right, but, I mean, he's saying, in our current ordinance, that this could be done. No, it couldn't have been done under the ordinance just preceding this change.
Mayor,
We-
where
not as
where
a
was that on Bransford?
Right.
Where was that on Bransford?
Over by Oakleaf.
Is it Branford or Pleasant Run?
I think it was
It was,
Oh.
Colleyville Terrace,
Yeah.
at the Colleyville Terrace teed into it, I think.
Yeah, over
anyway, it,
over Oakley.
I can show you. I mean, I just remember
So
that.
could we, because we're not happy with it going out to the road, could we even just at least ask the builder if they'd be considerate to pull the blue line back up against the house? At least it would give them a little bit of fence on that side, and then it would protect that side yard, and then still go along the side of the house, if that's what their intent was.
We could ask, but
Well, all I can do
don't
is
have
say
to
no.
comply, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, you're
we're-
saying-
We're probably at the point in this, I mean, I think we've clarified everyone's feeling up here.
Okay.
So that was the point of discussion. I think we probably ought to go ahead and have a public hearing and listen to
Yeah.
everybody
agree.
that's here to speak about
Okay.
it. And then come back.
Okay.
So I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Harold Whitten.
My name is Harold Whitten. I live at 1209 Gary Lynn Drive, which is right across the street from the
Yeah.
proposed fence. And I just would like to say that I would suggest that you decline having this exception, and you stick with the minimum yard requirements, which are reflected in your zoning districts for R20. There's additional issues that need to be considered. One is the bus stops at the corner of Joe Carroll and Gary Lynn to pick up students each and every day. Because of the situation at Bedford Road and Glade Road, a lot of people are now cutting through on Gary Lynn Drive so they don't have to sit at that stop sign.
Yeah.
And if the police would ever sit there on Gary Lynn, they would catch a lot of speeders going through there as well. Sometimes it's ridiculous how fast people are going through on Gary Lynn. I believe this would cause a hindrance to that school bus if that were permitted to take place. The other issue is there's a 25-foot setback off of the back of the property. There's a 10-foot setback on the sides of the property. On the bottom of that should be a 10-foot setback, but that fence that's there now, a stone wall and a proposed wrought iron and wood fence, is sitting directly on the property line. There's a 20-foot electric or utility easement back there, and you're supposed to be set back 10 feet off of that easement, which is not the case. And the property line on the back is supposed to be 25 feet, and that's on the property line, which is not proper either.
Okay.
So I just think we need to maintain the integrity of the property lines that have already been determined and been set and have been followed by everyone else that's in that subdivision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Sartain? Yeah. Thank you.
Council, I'd like to start off with saying to each and every one of you, thank you for what all you've done for Colleyville. Whether it be the Baseball Association, up and down Glade Road, the businesses, and even the expansion of Glade Road. It makes Colleyville an awesome place to be.
Thank you.
I've got some properties, I'm within the 500 feet. Can we blow this up?
Yes, you can set it down, on our camera's working, right? Yeah, set it on that, and they can focus the camera down.
On top.
Turn it up, it's gonna shine, there you go. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, you also have to give your address for the record.
Yeah.
I'm at 7113 Cedar Court, my residence.
Yeah.
And I've got some other businesses
Yeah.
within the 500 feet. It's been noted tonight about the blind spot when you're coming up Gary Lynn. I'm on Gary Lynn probably 2 or 3 times a day, and any 8-foot fence is going to create a blind spot for not only the buses but the traffic. And the gentleman before me was right about
If you need, he's gonna need to
Take a
turn
couple
that
of minutes.
camera on. If you hang on 1 second, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Or,
But I just, you know, the traffic flow.
Yeah.
The blind spot, I think we've all addressed that. And then I talked to Ben about how can he do on the front lot,
Mhm.
how can he do that?
Mhm.
8-foot fence or 6-foot
Yeah.
wrought iron? It's creating another blind spot.
yeah,
So that was my concern. I would like for you all to go back and revisit that, see what we can do. As this comes up, one thing that is not shown on the approved site plan is an additional driveway on the west side of that house, which is about a 14-foot driveway, and it's got to be at least 60 feet long. And it's on this plan. Another approach, of course.
Yeah.
And then you've got another gate that's going to be another 6-foot gate on the blue line that was there. That's my concern.
okay.
Be a great place for a motor coach.
Mhm.
I don't think motor coaches should be allowed on a residence. I'm not sure what your ordinance is right now, but might be something to consider.
Okay.
And it's on this little plat.
Mark, is that camera?
The camera's not working.
I apologize. And, Sam, I don't think it's working.
Okay. Well, on that north side, or
Yeah.
on the west side of that house,
Mhm.
where you've got on the 146 leg. pointing
Yes.
forward,
Yeah.
You've got from the back of that corner over to the property line, and then all the way out to the street. That's all concrete. That was not approved on the original site plan. And that's my concern, you know, lot coverage. And I think that it ought to be addressed somehow.
Okay.
But thanks for listening to me.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for all that you've done for the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, would you mind emailing a picture of that to these guys, or can we have that copy?
Okay, Mark.
No, we could,
That way we can have it
Get a
for record to
copy.
look
go
at.
copy it.
You can make a copy?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can make a copy.
So,
Thanks, Mike.
next card is Amy Edgel, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. Okay.
Hi, my name's Amy Edgel. My husband and I live at 1116 Joe Carroll. We're on the corner right across the street. We are not in favor of this proposed fence for several reasons. I think Mr. Witten said it perfectly also, but one of the other things is it would set a precedence. We have an old
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's an old neighborhood. And some houses are now being torn down. And I just, man, you let one in and it's just gonna keep going. This neighborhood is not a gated community. That's one of the things that we all love about it. It's like an old country feel to it. The style of fence is nice, the wrought iron, but not in the front yard. We just do request that please, not in the front yard. The green line where that's gonna be a wood fence, we actually, some of us were saying that, you know, the taller wood fence, the better, because this house is ginormous compared to the other houses. The people that have backyards facing the back of this backyard house, there's no privacy now. It's just, everything is gonna be out in the open for the height of this new house. But I didn't even realize about the purple, the alternate location within compliance. I just don't see, we would not want any sort of wrought iron fence in the front of the house. And it is kind of angled towards the corner, so, but even on the side of Joe Carroll, please, we just request no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just, they're from one.
Yeah, so there's no name, 1112 Joe Carroll, someone here from that address? Yeah. You want to speak? No, okay. Oh, so I'm sorry, you don't want to speak, you're in opposition, thank you. Okay.
There's some more
I
there.
need her name.
We have the address.
Okay.
There's some more.
No more. Oh, I have some more. Oh, Hanian Mahmood. Did I pronounce it right? Haneen Mahmood? Huh?
Good evening. My name's Haneen Mahmood, and honestly, I'm okay with speaking. I appreciate the consideration, but I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, the card indicated support.
Yeah, support, okay. Dorothy Jenkins. And I'm sorry, if you indicated you didn't mean to speak, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Jenkins, 1200 Garrison Drive. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Also have a respiratory thing. Welcome to the club.
Like all of
Yeah,
us,
really.
don't worry.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I'm on the bottom of the picture. I'm the neighbor on that side. My husband built a house in '64, wanted to live in the country. I didn't meet him and marry. I mean, I met him early, but we married in '89 and he passed. So it's me, and I'm on the curve of the road. And my several issues, safety. We have a curved driveway, so I have two options. But even then, that traffic goes so fast, I'm back and forth. You can't see the end of the road on either side of my driveway. And so I would like as much visibility as possible. And just coincidentally, I used to live on the west side of Fort Worth and was burglarized because of high shrubs. So I'm into openness. I like to see my neighbors for like neighborhood watch. And it occurred to me, if I can't see them, they can't see me. So I would like no fence. And I thought it was either a front fence or not. I have a question that I tried to ask a while ago. The gentleman with the code said something about the neighborhood. It matches the neighborhood. It does not match the neighborhood. There are no enclosed fences in that neighborhood. Like I said, my husband built it in '64, and many of the neighbors and the homes are of that ilk. It's a beautiful home. It's built up, the new place, but it's built up, it's 2-story, but it's built up like 3 feet high, so it's like 2.5 stories. Full windows on the back, you gotta see it, and they all face me, and they all face the neighbors. I mentioned to one of the neighbors, you ought to come down and see it. Oh, we can see it from here. I mean, they're at the other end of the block. So I don't have a problem with a privacy fence in the back. I did a little happy dance when I found out about it. Okay, so the safety is an issue. In the ordinance, it said something about screening materials. Maybe a wrought iron fence, but where are they going to put screening materials? They aren't going to put them on a wooden fence, so they are going to put them on the wrought iron. And that, I don't think, is going to meet your 25% visibility. It's going, especially with the angle you're at. Some of that screening material blocks out a lot of visibility. And at certain angles, even the wrought iron line of sight would have a problem. So safety and neighborhood watch and blending in. Without a fence, that house has a chance of maybe blending into the neighborhood. Right now, it's a great site. Trust me, 5 miles from the airport, no housing fees to pay, homeowners. It's a beautiful, and I have no doubt why they chose it. But please, no fence. Also, we could not get to all the neighbors, so we did pass around 2 things to sign. I didn't get the last count. We have approximately 12 to 14 signatures. They all say no. And here's one that was emailed. But we love our neighborhood, and we would like to keep that neighborhood. And we welcome the neighbors, and we met them this evening. But for me, next door, and oh my gosh, It's not quick, it's a raceway through there, especially after school with the academy kids. So you have teenagers driving fast, not much visibility, school kids let out. We need all the visibility we can have. I'm sure once the Glade is finished and hopefully the Glade Bedford intersection gets fixed, that would help. But right now, nobody wants to wait. And I was talking to my neighbors about the raceway on Glade, and they said Joe Carroll's the same way. So we really just want safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
They don't want to speak, but that's the
Okay.
need, that is the record.
Okay, so I have a card here from Terry Schultes, and don't want to speak, but like for me to read this note. And this note says, I vote against the request to allow construction of a 6-foot wrought iron fence encroaching in the 30-foot front yard setback on the property line. This house lot on the side facing Gary Lynn already is dangerous with a horrible blind spot as the road curves. Adding this fence would only increase what already is dangerous. So that's that card.
I think that's the petition that she provided as.
Okay, this is the new one, documentation, okay.
And then those are
And then-
petitions, I guess, that were.
Yeah, and so I do have one more card for speaker, but I do have two petitions, one with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 names, all in opposition, and another one with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 names in opposition, so that's just for the record. I do have a Carla Lorenzen. Oh, do not wish to speak, is in opposition. So it's another opposition card from 1105 Joe Carroll. Is that all our cards?
Yes, sir.
I believe that's all the cards that we have. Anyone else in the audience like to speak on this item? Okay, I see no one else wishing to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, so Ben, I have a question or two. One individual made a point that they believe the fence showed here was on the property line, not off of the property line according to utility easements or rights of way.
We do allow fences to go into utility easements. That's the one structure that we authorize.
Okay.
And we do allow for fences to be on side and rear property lines, interior side and interior rear property lines.
Okay. There was another comment about, so interior property line. So what about the blue, on the west side, the blue part?
Well, my interpretation is yes, that's okay.
We probably disagree, but.
As a non-private.
The other thing I heard Mr. Sartain talk about was there's an existing concrete slab on the west side. Do you know about that or not, or is that part of this construction, or is it going away?
Yeah,
or
he
is it
came in and talked to me. I suppose it was added based on when this was permitted, not quite 2 years ago. So it's vested under those rules when it was permitted. We do not have a maximum impervious cover until recently. December of last year was when we added an impervious cover. But the driveway approach, I did indicate that they would have to make sure that that gets approved by our Public Works office.
So
All driveway
there's no gate shown on here for that?
True. Right,
Why
this was
not?
the exhibit, we received this exhibit several months ago, and then they were out of the country for a long time, and so it's now coming before you.
Okay.
Almost think we should table.
I don't know that we've heard from the applicant. Is the applicant here, and do they wish to speak to us or not?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. I'll just ask I apologize, I don't know who the applicant is, or if you're here and you want to speak, we'll let you speak. If not, that's okay. Okay, so I see no one indicating they wish to speak. If your mind changes, if you're here, let me know. So this is an interesting case to me. Clearly, we're, well, let me state I always state my position. Let me state my position first. I do not agree with the variance request. I would vote to turn the variance request down, but I have even a concern beyond that, as I've already expressed. It's a surprise to me that we can put a fence in the front yard and all the way to the property line on this side yard, which is adjacent to a house that has a front yard. That's just inconsistent with, I've been around a long time. We've never allowed that in the past. So there's, I'm not exactly sure how we got here, and I'm not exactly sure how to proceed. I mean, we have options. We can take action on the resolution, whatever you want to do. We'd vote on it, up or down. We could table it to talk about this more, to get a better clarity of understanding on what is it and how do we move forward. And I don't know if our possibilities would change or not. But so I'm just laying out for you guys. You're the ones who are going to vote on this.
I'm in favor of tabling it and then having further discussions to where we can get clarity for both sides.
I think we need a clarification because honestly, I had no idea that we would allow any kind of fence on under an acre. I mean, that.
Yeah, so I think we're all, I mean, what I've heard said from the, not everyone's spoken, but that was my reaction. I was surprised. I think, I agree with you. I think our best course of action, because there's a little unclarity here, is to table this tonight.
Yeah.
So in fact, I'll make that motion. I move to table Resolution R-19-4373, and then give us a little time to step back and consider this.
I'll second.
A second.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll all second it.
I'll second.
Okay,
Mark
so
us all down.
the mayor moves to table Resolution R-19-4373, and I have a second by
Everybody stick your
Councilmember
hand up.
Kelly. Okay, everybody, okay. So would you open the vote, please?
We're voting to table.
You were voting to table. That's the motion. Yeah.
I think that's good.
And show it when it's ready. Okay, that motion's approved. Therefore, Resolution R-19-4373 is tabled. Thank you. Thank you all for speaking on that. That takes us, now we're now going to move to.
Mayor,
yes.
could you let everyone know how we will bring that off the table so that they're aware of the
Well,
process?
I made that, yeah, I didn't make a motion with a specific date. I did that on purpose. And so, we will put out a notification when it, well, we will carry it on the next agendas as tabled. But I certainly would recommend to us and the applicant that we communicate before the meeting and find out what the action may be. Because we'll know probably if we're going to leave it there the next meeting or not. We've done this before, where if it's taken us a little time to do something, we just left it there. And we'll make sure everybody knows when we get ready to pull it off. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone else knew they would.
Well, and I have a question also. How far along is the house before it's done? Does anyone know that? Where we stand so that we can see how long we have to move along on this?
It's getting close. I still think there's a month or two
Month
left.
or two, okay.
I think most of it's interior finish out, but it's getting close.
Yeah. But this doesn't, I mean, the house can be finished and lived in. It's not this doesn't stop any of that.
No, I know that. I'm just curious to where they stand on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then since we, then I want to go ahead and move to citizen comments, presentations regarding items not on the agenda. That's agenda item 8. And then after that, we will go back to agenda item 6. That's the one that may take us a while. So, do we have any cards? Yeah, we do. Kathy Hadley's one. Sorry, ma'am. That's okay.
Kathy Hadley, 204 Timberline Drive North. I represent myself. I have 2 pages of little notes. I'll talk quick. The first is the early residents of Colleyville are aging, and I've brought this up before. I think that it'd be very nice.
That would be me.
All of us here every day, all of us.
I'm an early resident.
Oh.
Anyway, but I'm not getting older. It'd be nice to, I think it'd be nice to have some homes or a dorm situation or something for some of the elderly people to be able to walk to the senior center and be able to take advantage of all the wonderful amenities that place has. So I know right now it's just kind of like a park setting back there, but I wish I'd really very seriously consider doing something for the elderly in the neighborhood of Colleyville. For the Colleyville residents who deserve this. Thank you for the porta potties at the Colleyville Nature Center. It took a while. Lisa Escobedo, thank you very much. But I hope that it's going to be something more than just porta potties at Colleyville Nature Center, that y'all have in the works a nicer plan. Colleyville Nature Center has become a hot topic for taking pictures of birds and bird watching. You see it in the magazines, and if I had time, I should have made copies, and I don't know how to put it on my phone and put it up here and all that. But anyway, it's out there. Colleyville Nature Center is on the map. And so we just need to make it a nice place for the visitors to come and check it out. It's really representing Colleyville. So once again, thanks for the porta potties, but hopefully it won't be too much longer till bathrooms are done. And then, okay, fines. When a person is not compliant, I don't want to say compliant, but whenever there's a problem with the code, when there's a violation, why are we so fast to just give a fine? You know, get it taken care of. There's $1,000 a day fine till you get it fixed. Really? This is Colleyville. You have educated, kind, caring people who live here, and I get it. You've got the newer, younger crowd that's come in, and they don't want to have to look at anything that they don't like to look at. And they're going to let you know they don't want to look at it. Well, don't turn your head and look at it. Why do we have attack dogs coming out with fines for some of our older residents who have been here, and because of pastures that might have one time had horses on it, now it's vacant, but it has wildflowers growing on it. And wildflowers, until they bloom, they're bushy and they get tall. But when they bloom, you've got bluebonnets or Indian paintbrushes or the buttercups. And until they bloom, people just go, ugh, look at those weeds, they need to be mowed. And I'm guilty. Remember the time that I told y'all about the man who had a pasture there on Glade Road? And I'm like, oh, wow, this is several years ago. And I called him and reported him. Stupid me. Because I thought, man, that pasture really needs mowing. So he got out there and he mowed. And then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, those were just a huge field of Indian paintbrushes. And he'd mowed them. But thank God they did, I think, unless he planted them, whatever, they came back later. And then shortly after that, I saw him mowing again. I'm like, stop, don't mow. They're beautiful when they're blooming. He said, somebody's unhappy with the pasture and I have to mow it. I went, no, you don't. This is Colleyville. Colleyville is not hoity-toity land. This is country. Y'all liked it enough to move here and live here and bring your family, raise your kids here. But yet now you've changed your mind. May I finish, please? I'm sorry. You changed your mind and you want everybody to fit into this stinking box. and it makes me sick. Colleyville is changing, and I don't like it. I do appreciate how y'all have changed Colleyville, taking it back from the high density that was several years ago. Now you've got it back to the larger lots. Think about it. Put the code enforcement people to school. Teach them how to talk to people, not write them fines. No, come on. What happened to our Constitution where you have the right to face your accusers? You know, if somebody has a fine, they're reported you for a fine, that person should have the right to know who's turning them in. This is America. You have a right to say, face your accuser and say, why are you reporting me for this? You know, what happened to compassion? Instead of reporting, I'm saying, hey, I see your pasture needs mowing. I see your yard needs mowing. Is there anything I can do to help you? And maybe you will have learned that something awful has happened in the family, and they can't take care of things at that moment. What happened to our compassion? I know it's there. We need to slow down and get away from this busy life, this hoity-toity life, and step back and remember, we live in an awesome city, awesome Colleyville. Y'all loved it, and y'all moved here. Let's not change it. Please, y'all have done a good job of getting Colleyville back on track and restoring her. Let's continue the fight of restoring her and not letting progress, or whatever you want to call it, kill her and destroy Colleyville's beautiful. We are a gem of a city between Dallas and Fort Worth. We are very unique.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie Jinko?
Hey there. So Natalie Jenko, 1104 John McCain Road, Colleyville. I have two things I wanted to speak about tonight. The first is thank you all for your service to our city. I am so very proud to live in a city where we are held up as an example statewide for the taxpayer-first, citizen-friendly city council. I'm also very proud to see that you guys have the ear of our governor and lieutenant governor. That is so awesome. And I also understand that our lieutenant governor endorsed 3 candidates who are up for re-election, so that's super neat. Thank you so very much for working hard to push back against developers who would like to turn us into a sea of rooftops. The fight to keep our density low and our city a desirable place to live is a constant and ongoing battle. And I hope voters realize what we have and get out to re-elect you starting in just a couple weeks. Number 2 is last year I sat on the Colleyville Tree Board, and we had an issue that we identified that we meant to have more meetings so we could fine-tune a presentation for you, and those meetings never happened, I think because Heather left as the Parks Chair and things kind of fell apart, and then we needed new citizens on the committee, so it never happened, but it's something that's timely and I think needs to happen, so I wanted to just come up and make you aware of it. So the issue that we identified was some of the large trees along our major roadways are hanging down into the roadways, and they're being cut by the trucks and cars that go by instead of our city cutting them. So my point is we need to upbranch some of our big trees and raise our canopy. And where you can see it happening is, as an example, on John McCain Road, the trees look like they're cut in a square. And I asked this way, and I asked the city, why are we cutting them in a square? That just looks a little odd. And they said, oh, we're not doing that. That's the trucks cutting them as they go by. So we're doing damage to trucks, and my biggest concern is there's an RV dealership right there. And I asked the owner, I said, isn't this damaging the RVs that come through here? And he said, yes, yeah, we tell people they have to go at times when there's no traffic, and there's a certain way they send them. But I feel like we shouldn't be causing that to happen. And all it is simply is cutting those branches up higher so that they're not interfering with traffic. Anyway, I called Highland Park because they are known for their beautiful trees, and I wanted to know what they do. Excuse me. And they said what happens is they have a specific team whose job it is to make sure any tree or limb issues are addressed immediately. And I said, well, how do they know which ones to cut? And they said they're reported. There are city workers who report tree issues, and they said at least every week they get 2 reports, and that they go out and handle that. Another issue that needs to be considered is this is actually getting dangerous because I have been going down John McCain when a truck, to avoid the branches overhead, goes into oncoming traffic or into the middle of the road. I have been terrified a couple of times by this happening. And again, all it requires is raising those limbs. Yeah, that's it. So please consider addressing. I know John McCain specifically. We also talked about, I think they were saying that either Hall Johnson or Glade had a similar problem. I think it was Glade, but I know it's most severe on John McCain, so maybe we could start there. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more. Claudia Bevel.
Claudia Bevel, 119 Cheeksburger Road. I'm here tonight to express my gratitude to this council for your leadership. This is 100% me, but I know that I speak for many of our wonderful Colleyville citizens. I have celebrated for the past 3 years that we have had true public servants who went to work immediately upon being elected and fulfilled every campaign promise you made, gaining the respect of every voter. Excuse me. In 1915, a Cadillac ad was published in the Saturday Evening Post on the subject of leadership. It was written by Theodore McManus, and I will be quoting from it in part. In every field of human endeavor, he that leads must perpetually live in the white glare of publicity. Regardless of the area of service to mankind, ambition and envy are always at work. In art, in music, in industry, and in politics, there is always a reward and a punishment. The reward is widespread recognition. The punishment is rejection, insinuation, and disparagement. When a man's work becomes a standard for the whole world, it also becomes a target for the envious few. If his work is mediocre, he will be left completely alone. If he achieves a masterpiece, it will set 1,000,000 tongues on fire. Long after a great work has been done, those who are envious continue to cry out that it cannot be done. Spiteful little voices in the domain of art were raised against Whistler long after the big world had acclaimed him its greatest artistic genius. Multitudes flocked to Beirut to worship at the musical shrine of Wagner, while the little group of those whom he dethroned and displaced argued angrily that he was no musician at all. The little world continued to protest that Fulton could never build a steamboat, while the big world flocked to the riverbanks to see his boat steam by. The leader is assailed because he is the leader, and the effort to defame him is merely added proof of that leadership and confirms once more the superiority of that which has been accomplished. Tonight, the city of Colleyville is a better place because of each one of you. I think I speak for a majority of our citizens when I say we do not want high-density neighborhoods. So thank you for correcting our comprehensive plan to protect our city from overgrowth and seas of rooftops. We do not want mass transit, and we do not want a train station. So thank you for taking a stand against the invasion of the urban transit system. We do not want to have our city funds so convoluted that we cannot see where the money is. Thank you for making the financials transparent and available to all of us. We want to be heard. We do not want to be muzzled when we come before you to speak. Thank you for allowing us the privilege of communicating our concerns. We do not wish to be intimidated, so thank you for correcting the rules for Citizen Forum so that we may speak on any subject and not just what you want to hear. We do not want to have council members who belong to secret groups on social media in an effort to hide their associations from the light of day. Thank you for your unbridled transparency. We do not want to have a private meeting to find out which side of the fence you are on. So thank you for serving 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and for responding openly to every reasonable request from our citizens. Your honesty and integrity inspire us all. Your passion and enthusiasm are evident, and your innovative and creative thinking are marks of true leadership. You have made us all proud of our city, and you have created a huge family in this city that is united and forever thankful for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the cards. That's all the cards I have for agenda item 8. So we will move now to agenda item 6 that we skipped. So agenda item 6 is ordinance and second reading of an ordinance, so we will take action on this. The second reading and public hearing of ordinance O-19-2079, consideration of amendments to the Land Development Code, specifically Chapter 2, definitions.
Right, so this is a second reading. We went through it in pretty good detail last time. My plan is to just go through the changes that were made between last time and tonight. So hopefully we'll go a lot quicker than last time. So
We're gonna hold you to that, Ben.
We're all crossing our fingers.
Just jinxed us, I think. But, like we do, we just kind of go through page by page. The first page with changes from last time is page 2. The first definition for abutting, adjacent, and adjoining, an error was identified, and so I just made that correction, deleted a D just for grammar's sake. And then on the bottom of that page, adult daycare, I added the phrase no overnight stay as requested. Moving to the next page, under the definition for animation, I added the word video, so it includes anything including video would be part of the animation. The next one is apartment. I know that there was some conversation about do we keep this definition?
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about this whole time. Maybe I'm just not fully understanding the issue at hand, but I guess I just highlighted that to see if we need to have conversation on the term for apartment.
Yeah, so last time there was a conversation about leaving it or not. My tendency to avoid any unintended consequences is to leave it. I
think so too.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I'll go ahead and strike the part that says C dwelling multifamily, and we'll just go back to, okay. Okay. On to the next page, page 4. We got hung up a little bit on the definition for breezeway, specifically that second clause, a breezeway shall be considered an accessory building. So I did provide some photos of what a breezeway is by definition. So you see that it's really a detached garage, and then there's a covered walkway that connects it to the house. And that's all that covered walkway does, is allow you to walk to the house without getting wet when it's raining. And so this is a great example. This is here in Colleyville. And then this shows actually 3 in one neighborhood. Sometimes they're long, like that previous example. Sometimes they're short, probably just 10 feet, which is our minimum separation between to allow for modified setbacks. So this has 3 examples. So again, it's just a covered walkway. And so that added clause, a breezeway shall be considered an accessory building. We would still calculate total square footage for accessory structures. They would still meet the setback and height requirements for accessory buildings, accessory structures. So this is what the intent was. So hopefully this makes sense now that you've seen the.
So without that added phrase, what difference does it make?
I think there's been in the past certain administrators that have said, well, it makes it attached, and so therefore your detached garage has to meet the setbacks, the primary setbacks.
Yeah.
So they would not be authorized to be closer to the side or rear property line because they have to meet maybe a 30 or 25-foot rear setback rather than being 15 feet away from the rear.
So on these examples here,
it allows those buildings to be closer either to the rear property line or the side property line because they are detached.
so what subdivision is this, by the way? Do you know? Is that one of ours?
Yeah, this is Colleyville.
Southwood.
Says Inwood at the bottom.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of the subdivision.
Southwood.
The street in Southwood?
Is that Ross Downs?
I don't recognize
It's
that.
Inwood.
I don't either.
That Mockingbird.
I was
wings
just
up.
moving the aerial photo around and I
Yeah.
saw these and I was like, oh, I need those.
Oh,
I think it may be Ross Downs.
McClint? MC.
Yeah, I can't, well, I guess just to understand the situation.
The other one's Mockingbird, if that's what you're looking for.
Pardon?
The other one's Mockingbird.
Mockingbird, okay. At any rate, all I was gonna do is I'm very sensitive now after our last little example, 7,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
really understanding, I mean, simple things can go awry on you. So we haven't had that statement in there for a year. I mean, it's never been in there. Has there been conflicts of interpretation in the staff?
Well, my interpretation that it is an accessory building. A breezeway is also accessory building, so this codifies my.
But your example had nothing to do with the breezeway. I mean, what your example was, this allows, you would interpret this to mean that garage would be an accessory building and it would have the right to have closer setbacks to the property lines than if it wasn't an accessory building, it would have to live up to whatever the home setbacks were.
Correct.
So personally, I'm leery of that.
Me too.
Just my opinion.
Are you saying that an accessory building can be closer to the edge if it is an accessory building?
Yes.
Yes.
That's authorized previously and today.
So the question.
There are strict limitations as well.
So that is true. I mean, I'll grant you, that is true.
Yep.
By ordinance, accessory building can be closer. So the question comes down to, under what situations would you consider a garage?
Yeah.
Part of the house or accessory building? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Right. And if you go to definition for accessory building, it does include in the latter part that a building housing an accessory use is considered an integral part of the principal building when
Yeah.
it has any part of a wall in common with the principal building or is under an extension of the main roof and designed as an integral part of the main building. Sometimes you have where you can drive through to access.
Yes, correct.
Not only
Right.
garage space on one side, but also on the other. But it's all integrated in and it
Right.
looks like the same facade.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, it's obviously not. This is just a little covered walkway that connects, and it doesn't have the same roof pitch. It's much
But forget the walkway for a minute.
Okay.
Forget the walkway. You just read me the definition of accessory building, right?
Mhm.
And I think what you said was, if it has a common wall with another structure, it's part of that structure. And if it doesn't, it's not. Did I hear you correctly? Is that what you said?
Right, an accessory structure
Okay.
is no longer accessory if it is it's not detached if it's attached. Okay.
Well, yeah, but
I guess I don't know where we're going.
Read the definition of accessory building one more time for me.
So, well, this is just the part as far as attaching. A building housing an accessory use is considered an integral part of the principal building when it has any part of a wall in common with the principal building, or is under an extension of the main roof and designed as an integral part of the main building.
Okay, or under extension of a main roof. Okay, so you're trying to distinguish what a main roof and non-main roof is. Okay. Okay.
That's a good way to describe that.
Mayor, that subdivision is Saddlebrook.
Saddlebrook,
Subdivision
okay.
is Saddlebrook.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so this said, in a breezeway, already under the current definition, is 6 feet or more in width. So there's not a limitation on width, right?
There's not.
No.
I think,
So let's say 4,006, that example. Let's say instead of that being a narrow breezeway, that it extends all the way to the edge of that garage roof. How would you interpret that?
I'd look at the roof design to see if it was designed to be integrally a part of the main building or not. I'm
now you gotta
perfectly fine
explain to
with
me
adding a maximum width if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still, this particular statement speaks to the breezeway itself. It says, that statement says the breezeway will be an accessory building.
Correct.
Really doesn't speak to the garage or anything else. So that has some meaning to you, but I'm not exactly sure
Well,
what that is.
because it's connecting a main structure to an accessory building, and then the breezeway itself is also
So
considered
why is that important, that the breezeway is an accessory building?
Because otherwise, an interpretation could be you're now attaching it to the house, therefore what you are attaching has to meet the primary setbacks.
Yeah, see, my idea is that it is part of the house when you attach it.
That's what I always
That's what
thought
I
too.
feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would. I don't think I would go ahead with
So
saying
then
it's an accessory
in
building.
these 4 examples I've given, they would all be in violation.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it, because I think that the idea here is just to give a covered walkway between a garage that is separated or an accessory building. I mean, I realize that we're all a little scared
Yeah,
right
right,
now of
yeah.
the ordinances.
You picked up on that, didn't
I
you?
am too. But I do think that, I mean, I've looked at homes like this as well, where it is a separate building, and there's a
Yeah.
walkway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate for us to overthink
Yeah,
that, but
well, the reason all this says is that breezeway is an accessory building.
yes.
Doesn't say doodly squat about that breezeway. All these that
And
we're
that's
looking at are
accessory.
narrow.
Right.
There's some width.
It's
and-
just defining that as the accessory building as well as
Yeah.
any others.
Yeah, but if that was, like I said, if I built one and made it a lot wider than that,
Mhm.
what would the interpret, that's the breezeway, or is that not a breezeway?
Well, is it open underneath?
Yeah,
So, I mean, that sounds like a breezeway to me.
so this
But
house he
should we-
described is open underneath too,
But
where
should
it's
we
connect.
define a maximum? I mean,
Huh?
A maximum.
Well, I don't know, that's why, I mean, this sounds like I'm really being nitpicking, but I'm really
well,
trying to
after
understand the
what's
principle
happened
here.
tonight,
There's
I have a
reason,
new appreciation again,
there's
so.
reason to be nitpicking, in
I
my
feel like,
opinion.
I feel like once you get past a certain size, it would be considered part of the house, like the roof.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I think a reasonable person would tend to think, well, if it's big enough, it's part of the house, but this doesn't say anything about that.
No.
So you're still gonna be faced with interpretations.
Right.
I mean, people can dream up situations where it doesn't clarify that. So here's another question, Ben. So this ordinance has been this way for many years, like it is without that phrase, many years. Have we had any trouble with it?
I don't know how past directors have interpreted it. I think some have interpreted it the way that I
Yeah.
interpret it. But the other side of that argument is somebody could say, well, it's attached, and it's attached.
But
therefore
you can't cite for me examples where it's been a problem. So if you can't cite for me examples, here's my approach tonight, take it out. why are we have it? Why are we adding it? I'm not trying to be difficult, believe me, but are we solving a problem that doesn't exist? And thereby creating potential unintended consequences down the road.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
all it's doing is clarifying a situation where if somebody wanted
Yeah.
to appeal,
Yeah.
they would have to, this
Yeah.
clarifies for me
For you,
better
yeah.
what the breezeway is, and
Yeah.
therefore there's,
I
if they
understand.
want to appeal what that is,
Believe me, I
it's much
understand.
narrower rather than right now, it's
Yeah,
much wider.
I understand. There's 7 of us sitting up here. My opinion is to take it out.
One
But-
solution could be no more than,
But it currently
no
is
more
in
than
here.
8 feet wide.
But it currently is in here. You're saying remove.
No, it's not.
No.
The only new part is a breezeway shall be
Yes,
considered an
only,
accessory.
that's what I'm talking
You're saying
about.
just
I'm
take
just
one
saying, don't
part
put
out.
that in there. If we don't have a problem,
misunderstood.
why put it in there?
I misunderstood. I
Because
thought you
then
meant the
other
whole breezeway.
interpretations come into play.
I thought you meant the whole breezeway.
No, no,
so you
no,
meant
no,
like
I just
down.
meant the
Yeah,
blue
my
part.
fault. I am
Last-
Yeah.
misunderstanding.
It's the last sentence.
Yeah,
I say take it out.
That's fine.
I agree.
okay, it's out.
I mean, it took us 20 minutes to try and figure out what it meant, so.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Okay.
My next change is on page, well, actually, I just wanted to identify on page 6.
Okay.
We, I think it was asked that I review our regulations for carports to make sure that the definition for
Yeah.
carport was appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do that, and
Okay.
I propose no change to the definition. I feel that it is good.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel that it says not an accessory building is necessary since we pulled that out of the breezeway description or definition?
Well, we have a specific definition for accessory building.
Yeah.
This would still be an accessory structure, but not an accessory building.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm on to page 7. Just under Collector Street, removing the phrase "one or more." So it provides traffic circulation within or between subdivisions. I'm moving to page 8. For the first definition up at the top, court, clarifying that to 2 or more sides. On also page 8, the definition for density, I'm recommending no change to what is proposed there. I know there was a question about whether open space should be added in there. From a practice, pretty much all planners do not include open space as part of, or we do not remove open space area when we calculate density.
We do not remove?
Planners do not, that's a practice for calculating density pretty much across the board. You do not remove the open space area.
Okay, so the discussion last time was, well, what if you have an area that, a piece of property, and there's an area of that property that, based on the nature, is unbuildable?
Yeah.
Period. Do you or do you not include that in the density
I don't think-
calculation?
I don't think you should.
Because there couldn't be a house there anyway.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me like it should be taken out.
And what I'm saying is that that's not the practice.
Yeah. So
That would be-
yeah, I understand. That doesn't necessarily mean anything to us.
But does this,
No, I understand, believe me,
Yeah.
I understand.
but does this definition here align with the definition we have in our,
Yeah,
comprehensive
compre,
plan?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
That,
what I
in
like.
fact, yeah, we talked about that, and that was a homework item.
So yes, it does. The change was, rather than only taking out the perimeter right-of-way dedication, the comprehensive plan also included all street right-of-way
right.
interior to the development.
Right.
So this matches the comprehensive plan.
So the only two things that are in question would be the areas that are floodplain or floodway and/or areas that are stormwater detention. So those are the two that you're
That, right,
pointing to.
yeah. That's really what it boils down to.
And so you could, through an engineering effort, take something out of the floodplain, and then once you do it, it wouldn't be counted, but as long as it's in the
Yeah.
delineated floodplain, it should be.
And I've seen examples where you had to build detention for stormwater drainage. You had to.
Sure.
To design this thing in order to develop it at all. I do not think it's appropriate for that to be in the density calculation whatsoever. And that really wasn't the intention in the master plan, because that can completely tweak your density computation. Now, sometimes you may have a design where, hey, it's usable, but when it rains real big, it's gonna collect water. But other times you don't. I mean, that, you could argue that one, but I think if it's gonna be water there and you gotta have it because that's part of the drainage design, I don't think you should get credit for it from a density.
That's my same reaction.
Yep.
If there's whatever there is there, if it's a huge bowl,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
just a natural bowl
Yeah.
that collects water, that you would, no way you could put a house there.
Mhm.
Seems to me like that should be taken out of the calculation.
Don't disagree with what you said a while ago. I know the practice in many
Will
places
dramatically
is not
skew
that
several
way, but.
projects.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought when we were redoing the master plan, we
Mhm.
talked about requiring,
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
we took out all of the right-of-ways and all,
yeah.
all land that was not buildable. So that's why I don't.
It was just going from the gross,
Hmm?
it was just going from the
Yeah.
gross density calculation to
right.
net density,
Right,
and that is only removing the right-of-way areas.
yeah.
Net density.
Net density is only removing the right-of-way areas.
So when we require 15%, what is it, 15% unbuildable? What are the, or open space, or what do we require?
For a
Or
PUD, we require 20%.
Yeah.
20%. What goes into the 20%? Is that all has to be buildable area?
Traditionally, it's been, that's the point. Traditionally, it's been allowing for floodplain and for ponds and stuff. And so that's one of the things you're talking about now is if you want to exclude that, you're excluding it then from, from all, in a PUD, it's easy because you can actually regulate the PUD.
Right.
But in a traditional sense, you want to exclude it. So if you want to take it out of the calculations, you should just say in that definition, excluding, just like you have already listed, you already have listed, less any public
Or
private,
Right away.
right-of-way dedication, comma, floodplain or floodway, comma, and/or engineering requirement related to stormwater management.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I just want, I'd like to give you an example of a spot that I think they were taking the calculation in. It's like Oakdale, where the old Russell place was, where the peach orchard was.
Yeah.
So there's only buildable space up top, I think on those 6 acres or something, I think there's only 3 or 4 that were buildable, but the lot sloped down, didn't flood, and so they were using that as the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, so if, floodway can be usable.
Right.
Just my personal opinion. Floodplain. Yeah,
You're
flood, not
talking about
floodway. Floodplain, I'm sorry, floodway, no, gotta be out of it. But if it can be usable and made into trails and a nice park that
Sure.
people and citizens actually get use out of,
Yeah.
except under those 100-year, 500-year events
Sure.
when it happens to flood, I don't mind that because it's usable. It's usable to the citizens get value
Right.
for it. If they get value for it, it's okay. That's why if you had to build a storm detention facility, it's had water in it all the time, they get no value from that. And it's got to be there because of the engineering design. Floodways, no value, floodway.
It's built.
Does that
so
make sense?
So you're
Yeah,
saying,
it's built so no one goes in there,
Yes,
because it's dangerous.
yeah, Callie?
are you saying include that in the calculation?
Well, yeah, if it's an area that can basically be kind of a park, that you can have trails in and people can use it, citizens get value out of it by using it because it's a nice place to walk or throw the ball or run your dog, I'm okay with that. It's only when it's really not usable, it's not of value, other than the engineering drainage design, you gotta be there for that, or it's floodway, which is not really usable. Does that make sense? So it is tougher to pin that down.
Yeah, because I've seen people take it and turn it into beautiful fountains and stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, that's,
And so-
I think what you do is by saying engineering required related to stormwater management, then that way they can design a pond that meets the standard
Yep.
for stormwater management, engineering standard, exclude that land, and then say, but we want to build a bigger, beautiful pond
Yeah.
that we do get credit for the rest of it, because that pond has aesthetic value.
And I would be okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
So you're differentiating between
Right.
what's required per an engineering standard
Yeah.
and a design standard as opposed to what's being built.
Yeah.
Because I do agree, you build a beautiful park,
Yeah.
with a beautiful pond with trails around it, you should get credit for that. That's beautiful open space,
Mhm.
especially if it's a fishing pond with a pier and everything. But there may be a stormwater management aspect to it.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
So adding floodway, floodplain?
Yeah, well, floodplain or
Flood-
floodway, I mean, you can engineer the floodplain away, and then it would change your calculation. But if it's designated as floodplain, it's up to you, I don't care either way. But traditionally,
So floodway, at least floodway and required engineered stormwater facility.
right, floodplain
Yeah.
should not be buildable until it's changed via
Right.
engineering.
Right.
And so therefore, why would you get credit for it?
Right.
If you then go through the study and change it, then you should
You
get
get-
credit for it.
Right, right.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you just said was floodway and say it again, engineered,
Any required engineered
Required
stormwater
engineering.
facility?
yeah.
Stormwater management.
Does that make sense
Yep.
to you? Okay. That
Yep.
makes sense to,
Yeah, I do. I like it.
Okay.
Are you there too, Ben, or what?
I'm sorry?
Do you understand, or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Makes sense.
understand.
Okay, buddy.
Okay. The next item is on page 9. There was a question whether we should keep drip line in, but we do have a definition for critical root zone, and
Yeah.
that's what we've
Yeah.
transitioned to,
Yeah,
so we don't.
yeah, I
that's
had a
the reason
question,
for-
I remember Mrs. Hennessy speaking to this, but my question was, drip line is fairly clear definition to me. Drip line is you got a canopy, and where the canopy extends, that's the drip line. And that self-compensates for the species and type of tree. The
Right.
table that we're going to is much more restrictive, and I don't know if it has that compensation in it.
No, the
correctly.
regulation now is based on critical root zone, not drip line.
So.
We could keep it in here, but there's no regulation associated with
Yeah, but the theory has always been the critical root zone is under the drip line. Do you agree with that or not?
Well, the only,
Yes, but it may not be as big as the drip line.
the only reason I would leave, for the sake of moving past that, the only reason maybe leave the drip line definition in there is if for some reason, as part of a PUD, we require a certain tree be protected to a drip line, it's at least defined here. Otherwise, you'd have to define it in the PUD ordinance.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
So it doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
leave it in as
Let's
much.
leave it in, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Nine.
I'm now on page
Okay.
10 for multifamily dwelling. Do we, yeah, there was the, I guess, a little bit of conversation about owner occupied versus rental. I don't know how to address that. That, to me, sounds like more of a chapter 3 issue than definitional.
Well, and in your defense, you did help in chapter 3 by making them special uses, whereas single is permitted, so that at least gives you a bite at the apple, so I'm less concerned about it,
Okay,
because they're all special uses.
that's right.
All
Now they are.
Yes, all
Okay.
multifamily is.
All multifamily, are,
Special.
okay.
And so that gives you a chance at that time to ask the question about owner occupied versus
Sure.
Yeah,
rental.
okay.
Very good point, yeah.
So that was a good
Okay.
move. Genius idea, Ben.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll take it, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for laughing at that.
Next change is on page 12. More for me, fence, and just clarifying what is solid and what is open.
Can I make
changed-
a- yeah, can
Oh,
I-
wow.
There's no regulation associated with this.
Can I make a change to that might settle all this?
Okay.
So on page 12, could you strike fence And so in its place, it should say fence, C, privacy fence. And then under privacy fence, under Ps, a privacy fence would be any barrier closing or bordering a field, yard, usually made of posts, wire, wood, metal, iron, aluminum, and used to prevent entrance to, confine, or mark a boundary. And then by doing that, it solves our previous problem, doesn't it? Because under the Chapter 3, privacy fence is required to meet a higher burden of side yard setback as it relates to corner sides.
We would still have to modify Chapter 3 because in that corner side yard, it defines what privacy fence is.
Well, it says a privacy fence or wall, which shall be defined as any fence or wall greater than 30 inches in height that is greater than 25% opaque construction within a required street side yard shall be subject to whichever of the following provisions, A through D, shall yield the greatest setback.
Right, so you'd have to change that as well.
Why? Just define privacy fence as any fence that, any barrier.
But in Chapter 3, it says greater than 30 inches that is more than 25% opaque.
Right, in our previous example, it was greater than 30 inches, and.
But it was not more than 25% opaque.
But,
You sure it's wrought iron, I thought?
Which is less than 25% opaque.
How close were the rails?
Oh.
By
Well, even
25% opaque, I'm saying that there you can see through it. It's got rails you can see through, right? There was no solid portion to it.
Correct.
So then it would.
And a privacy fence has to be more than 25% opaque.
No, it doesn't. The definition I just said doesn't.
Well, in Chapter 3, it says that it does.
No, but the definition is being changed. The definition says, and I'll quote, "A privacy fence is any, I'll underline any barrier closing or bordering a field, yard,
All
front,
I'm saying
or
is
side."
that we need to do it in both places.
I might agree with you later, but for now, I think you can change the definition and solve our problem. But it might be a better answer by Whit, because he's probably better. See what I'm getting at, Whit? I agree with you.
Chapter 3 has specific language that says a privacy fence is greater than 30 inches in height and more than 25% opaque.
Right, I mean, I see both interpretations, and the fact that it's open to interpretations means that we can probably tighten that up just a hair. But I think.
I'm just suggesting we need to do it in both places.
Yeah.
Right, and I agree.
I'm suggesting we do this one now. too.
Well,
yeah, me too.
Oh, and then by the way.
Well, I agree.
Excuse me.
We can do this, but we also need to do it in Chapter.
No, not really. Not if we define opaque. And here's how I would define opaque as it relates to a fence. The fence face being able to visibly see through it for some percentage, i.e., the difference between a wood fence that has boards that literally are within a micrometer distance apart and a fence that is wrought iron in essence, where the opening between the rails or spindles, whatever you want to call them, is of such a nature that it creates, in any section of the fence, more than 25% of the fence to be visible through as opposed to an obstruction from. So that's a good defense for opaque.
Well,
as it relates to fence.
And I agree with that, absolutely. However, I think for the case tonight leads to the issue that we also need to look at, and I'm not an expert here, and that'll be angular opaqueness, because on a.
I'm defining that. I can add angular opaque.
We're talking from any angle?
Several people
Yes.
mentioned it.
Okay.
No, I would say from a perpendicular angle looking at it directly.
Well.
I can define that too.
Right.
Perpendicular angle, that'll go under.
Well, you don't have. There comes a, like, if you look at it head-on, it's not
No,
visible, right?
but traditionally, the standard of measuring a fence's opaqueness is your ability to see through for traffic hazards and other things.
Understand.
And so that's why traditionally a wrought iron fence is considered a fence that, in my opinion, would be opaque. Because it's designed so that the visual sight distance through it precludes a safety concern, as opposed to a fence that's not opaque, that really is a privacy fence that provides a true screen for a backyard or for privacy. But what I'm saying is if you amend the definition of fence to say it's a privacy fence, then under Chapter 3, corner side yards, where it says a privacy fence or wall, and then it does say 30 inches in height and greater than 25% opaque construction, if you define the privacy fence and you define the opaque construction of a fence, I think you have both of those covered.
Yeah.
In which case, Then the greater setback sets in which case it'd either be 2/3 of the front yard setback or the adjoining front yard, depending upon how you read the next section. But either way, it moves it back a minimum of 20 feet. So, and I'd suggest you change those tonight.
Okay, I agree with that.
You want to wordsmith that for us, Whit, or do you want me to try?
Um,
You're getting the big bucks.
Yeah, I can work on that.
Give it to him.
Well, you got to define two things. You got to define fence.
You've been sitting there thinking about it.
I've been thinking about this for at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, under fence, you change the definition to say, C, privacy fence, so you could have no definition of a fence except for privacy fence. Therefore, any interpretation of anything under 3 that relates to fence would default to that. And it would just pick up the definition that's there already, just to say, add the word, instead of A, it would say any barrier, closing, or bordering a field that it continues on. And the only other thing I would change is where the listing of materials, it says made of posts, wire, or wood, I would say include metal, iron, aluminum, and then pick up the rest of it and stop before you get to the next sentence, which starts with any open. Can you read, copy reading?
My recommendation would be to maybe keep this as it is. We obviously will be reviewing and bringing back our fence section. And if we need to also include chapter 2 for definition for fence, we can do that at the same time.
Well,
in my opinion, this definition works, and what we really need to address is the regulation in chapter 3.
I'm with you. I hear you. I respect that opinion. Right now, my opinion's going with that. And everybody else has to speak. That's just one. So, if everybody's listening to that conversation, city manager had a recommendation on the definition I personally agree with for right now.
I like it.
How do you get?
I
you
agree
good?
too.
Good. Callie, how do you?
I think you wordsmithed it pretty well.
Yeah. Good. Okay, we're gonna go with that. We do need to go change the regulation, but we could, in fact, there's something that we missed, that would clarify all this really easily in the regulation. That's that 30 inch. That was a surprise, to me.
Absolutely.
We went through that whole thing. I don't know how that happened, but
Don't either.
in front of those build lines like we were talking at, 30 inches is it. I don't care what kind of fence it is.
I agree. Yeah, I didn't understand at all.
Yeah, that's the way it's been for years and worked well.
And we changed it. I mean, that's the other thing. We caused them to take the whole fence out, so.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to move on.
Okay,
It
yeah.
sounds like
Yeah, we'll
somebody's
get
gonna
this,
be
yeah.
doing that.
Let's
Okay.
move on and, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. The next change that I have is on page 14 with hotel or motel, changing the word shall to may as requested. The next item is on page 16, which is for a corner lot. There was some question about what should be determined as the front versus the street side.
Yeah.
These are just some images I took from the internet, and pretty much in all cases, it's always the smaller dimension that becomes the true front. And
Yeah.
then the rear is opposite
Yeah.
that, and then everything else is interior side or
Yeah.
street side.
So this is where we had a discussion last time about there's two factors here. One, the lot dimension. And so what you just said, purely based on lot dimension, the narrower dimension is defined as the front of the lot. However, now a structure gets built, a house, and where does the front door have to go and the garage is? So any reasonable person would say, well, if that's the front, that's the front. But you would say, well, that front door can go anywhere.
Correct.
And so that's that's a little problematic in reality when you see this happen. Example right over here on Church, at the end of Church Street we talked about last time, where the narrow width of the lot faces Pleasant Run, but the house faces that other street, and that gives rise to a backyard that's like 5 feet in width, and we would never agree in our ordinances to a 5-foot setback on a backyard. And so those aren't not inconsistent, the structure and the lot. Does that make sense? That's the challenge that we were talking about.
Well,
I know you don't care, but because you're
as a side to the build, you know, it can be that close as a side. My guess is that they will not have an exit out to that 10 or 15-foot setback.
Yeah.
They'll still exit out to the larger area, to the larger required rear area with a 25-foot distance rather than 10.
Okay.
It's all about design on the structure.
Is there a way to, can we do, can we say lot rear, and then where you define the lot rear right now as the boundary line that is opposite and most distant from the front street line? And then, of course, it says, except in that case of uncertainty, the building official shall determine the rear line, or in the case of a corner side lot, at which time, in case of a corner side yard wherein the entrance is not off the shortest lot abutting a street, in which case it may be the area that has traditionally been deemed as the interior side, shall be defined as the rear. See, I know that was a run-on sentence, but you get what I'm saying?
I mean, it causes a lot of issues as far as fitting a house onto a property.
I get that.
Yeah, but the challenge, it only for small lots. Like that lot right there wouldn't get approved today, right?
Sure.
So,
but
but it's an aesthetic thing. I mean, we're
on a
talking about just
R20
that
lot,
lot,
you
but
would have
you gotta take into account the whole, the area around it, because the guy next door whose house faces that direction, next guy's is side yard. I mean, there's some differences in, you know, what people do in backyards or side yards or front yards. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, backyards.
So that's why, to me, we gotta go a little bit beyond just
On a
that.
corner lot, there's going to be visibility one way or the other.
But he's right about one thing. Where you change that is chapter 3 to say your corner, you change your setbacks for the corner lot and make the interior side yard for a corner lot bigger. But to change it here, the only way you can change it here is to somehow define that interior side yard as a rear yard. And then you're right about that. It does diminish the lot for the home, or it really encourages them to turn the home and face the traditional front.
Well, so for a corner, but for a corner lot today, I don't care where the house faces, corner lot's gonna have a front yard setback on those two roads.
Yes.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So we're only defining what would then be the rear yard.
Yes, the problem is that when you build on that, for the definition of the code official, the front yard is the smallest opening on, or the smallest portion of the lot abutting an improved road. And so, but people who build on a corner side, on a corner lot may, though, however, say, it's more visually appealing for my house to face the longer end. So because the setback's the same either way, nobody really should care from the roadway. But the question is, in the house next door, the lot next door, that rear yard then, in essence, because the way the house faces is oriented, the rear yard is really a rear yard setback rather than a side yard setback instead of a rear yard setback. And so it creates the perception the house is right on the line. And that was, I thought, what the issue was.
Yeah.
Well, I see no difference than the side of the house being at that same distance.
True, but no, I'm not disagreeing with you.
The same length.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but it does create a weird perception that the backyard of the house is right up against the other one. And so there is no true, the backyard then ends up being on the side because they have very little space. Unless they have a deep enough lot, in which case you're right, then they just build it accordingly. It's not a problem.
Doesn't mind it,
No matter what, one of those sides will be a rear, and it's going to be visible
Yep.
from one or the other street.
Yep.
Just for flexibility, it's easiest to define the lesser dimension as the front and opposite that to be the rear. It provides a lot more buildable area.
A lot more visible area to what?
Buildable area.
Oh, buildable.
So if you go a rear yard on this bottom line,
Yeah.
you've now required it to be very narrow and very long to get the same square footage for a house.
The way to solve the problem the right way is to subdivide the property with bigger corner lots. But you don't have that opportunity because these lots already exist. So certainly not something you.
Right, I mean, that example, it's been
Yeah.
that way for 50 years.
Right.
But with our standard guidelines,
Okay.
they will be larger. Shouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
And then if we go to the example that we saw earlier, they actually don't face one or the other.
That's
They
what I'm
face
saying.
the corner. So then
Yeah,
what do you do?
and they can do that
Yeah.
on a corner
Right, but
lot.
then what's the rear yard?
Then you're right. He's arguing that in their case, the place that's concrete now is technically their rear yard, and if you looked at it, actually technically, it is their rear yard. And so, should it be there or should it be on the other side, the southern section of the property? And what difference does it make in a house like that that's oriented that way because it's so weird? I get what you're saying.
So right now, in any of our ordinances, there's no requirement on how the house orients, correct?
No.
Okay.
And if you wanted to do that, you really have to go to an architectural standard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know it's worth it, yeah. Okay.
All right,
So
no
if-
change.
If we say that, the short side is the front, what happens if they come along and say, well, our design doesn't work that way?
They have to get variance.
They can go for a variance, right?
Well, the example I keep talking about is that exact case.
Yeah.
No, but they meet the
No,
setbacks.
they meet all the
They
setbacks.
meet the front and the corner side. The concern is the interior side. That's the issue.
Okay.
So they meet the requirements like
They meet the
that.
street side
Yeah.
setbacks on both street frontages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so, George, what are you saying? I mean, if I understood you correctly, they don't build a house because they can't build it there.
Well, no, I was just saying let's say they've got plenty of room, okay?
Okay.
But they prefer to have facing the other way,
Yeah.
front on the other side. They can come for a variance, but to do.
Well, no, they can do that. There's nothing, that's what I asked. There's no requirement for orientation of the house.
Correct.
Well,
That's
you
correct.
just said the front is the short side.
But he's talking about the lot.
For setback
only.
purposes.
See, he's talking about the lot, not the building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why, this is all about the lot.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, the next change is on page 19 for outdoor display of merchandise, adding the word temporarily. So just to clarify that this is truly a temporary situation where they bring it out during the day, bring it in overnight. The next,
Do we have to say something more than temporary? In other words,
any type of
is
outside,
temporary 5 days? I'm gonna have a 5-day sale, so I'm just gonna leave it out there for 5 days?
well, we don't allow for overnight storage.
Okay, all right.
Unless approved by a special use permit.
Okay,
So if they're
just
gonna
wanna
keep it
make
out for 5 days in a row,
I
then
just wanna make
you
sure,
guys would have to approve that,
yeah.
So they can
Have people
take it
say-
in and bring it out every day.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know there's some stores that do.
Yeah, a lot of stores
Or
do
right
that.
Okay,
Sidewalk.
Would that clarify for the lot coverage issue we had in the past with the carport? Like, that's not temporary because it
can you say
doesn't come in
temporary?
and out every day?
Well, it can't be on the grass. It has to be either along the sidewalk area or in a designated area that doesn't take away from required parking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just saying, like,
like the definition.
Like the hardware stores will have stuff that they put out, but then they bring it
Yeah.
all in.
Right.
Michael's does a lot of,
Well, I was just saying, will that clarify in other areas for the word temporary? You know, when we were discussing, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't think
I
it
think
will, because that's talking about merchandise, so,
Okay,
yeah, this is just for merchandise for
Okay.
sale.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
we'll cover that one, unfortunately.
all right.
Okay.
sorry, I was thinking.
The next change that I have is on page 23 for definition of sidewalk, just changing the reference from street to the term right-of-way. And the next is for me on page 29, so near the end, for a protected tree. We wanted to make sure that they were, this definition was consistent with chapter 5, and so I added the language. This exact language is repeated in chapter 5, but what this will allow is if chapter 5 gets changed,
Yeah.
then we don't have to change this definition because we are referring to chapter 5 as well.
Okay.
And those are the changes that were asked from last time.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, I just want to go back to the lot definition, so I'm thinking about that. And I just want everybody to appreciate and understand this. So by putting this definition in and requiring that the front be the narrow one, what that will do, the consequence of that is it only matters when there's a small lot. For larger lots, in fact, for a standard lot and half-acre lot, it's not going to make a bit of difference
Yeah.
because there's plenty of room. It's only where you have smaller lots. And what it does, what you said, this definition allows for more buildable space. Now, what that does, it changes in the regulations, gives it more flexibility to build on that small lot. Whereas if you applied the more stringent normal one, you wouldn't be able to build a house. Now, does that matter? My position is we would not approve those lots today. It would not get approved. So it only happened when they exist. And so the example I keep referring to is a perfect example because there was one house on that property. It just so happened at some point in time, you'd have to tell me when that plat was done. I don't know when it was done.
The original plat was, I think, in the 50s, but the
Yeah.
revised plat was in the early 70s, if I remember.
Okay, so anyway, 70s, 50s, long time ago, where they platted that little end off. But it wasn't acted on. That house had been there for
Sure.
eons on an acre lot or whatever. And so if the regulations were more stringent, they would not have been able to build that house.
Exactly.
So now we're going to have two houses where there was one, and one of them's going to be crammed into a little lot, only because we allowed that to happen.
Yep.
So
Yeah, you're talking
if
about
that's what
Cherry
we
Lane?
want. Huh?
You're talking about Cherry Lane on the end of it?
No, I'm not talking about Cherryland. I'm talking about right down here on Pleasant Run
Pleasant Run.
at Church Street.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
The one
Oh,
that
yeah.
has is opaque then.
Okay.
And so if I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
Yeah.
If that's your intent, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds harsh. I mean, it sounds harsh. Well, but that's what happens.
Right.
So,
Agree.
That's why we don't want small lots.
Interpreting that.
yeah,
privacy
it
fence
creates,
to begin with.
well, and you have some places that were here pre-existing.
I know.
And so what do you want to allow? You know, the question becomes, what do you want to allow on them?
Exactly.
Oh, sorry.
Because it could have been just a new house built there, like there was one before, and it would have been perfectly fine.
problem.
We wouldn't be having
Well,
this
greater than
discussion.
30 inches it
Yep.
is.
But I'm just saying, it's normal and natural. I don't complain. I mean, somebody that wants to buy that lot as an investment, they're going to try to squeeze everything out of that they can. And so it's always that push-pull between,
Sure.
you know, what's your standard and what does somebody coming in that may or may not live here
That's why
trying to accomplish to make money.
Okay.
I'd argue that a privacy fence is one you can't see through.
Okay.
So let me ask now, I should know the answer to this, Ben, because we've talked about it for a long time. I'm going back to that definition. What page is that on? The lot?
For lot,
Yeah,
page 16.
16.
Good.
Lot corner, is that the one we were talking about?
So then
Yeah.
The most stringent of these setbacks.
This is a new definition completely.
Actually, no, it's not a new definition. This is just moved to be in alphabetical order.
I like
Okay,
If you look on page 17,
the side of another
it's moving from the end of the Ls to more in the middle of the Ls.
okay, so,
So this is actually not a new.
so this is not a change in wording.
No.
They've argued it.
Okay,
So then,
all right,
full 30-foot kick.
okay.
You got it.
And so the building official can change it, so that's cool.
Yeah,
You got
Okay.
it.
okay.
Thank you. Apologize.
By the way, on your
Yes, sir.
definitions, I was gonna comment on key lots and things like that. I don't want to, hope we don't have pipe lots, pipe stem lots, hope we don't ever go to that.
Yeah, now, we will have keyed lots, but it'd be rare that we do a flag lot or anything like that without, well, you guys would have to approve anything.
I understand. A keyed lot is what, straight across?
No, a keyed lot is,
Kind of like,
oh, well, okay.
got a thin leg.
So my
Hmm.
experience for a keyed lot is different than what they're showing here. A keyed lot would be kind of your pie piece at the end of a cul-de-sac,
Oh, okay.
where it's a much narrower front,
And then,
and it widens out
okay.
pretty
Mhm.
dramatically
Yeah.
towards the back.
Okay.
Yeah, because that didn't look any different than a normal.
Right.
But you had one more that had the pipe stem or some, yeah, that, you have a key lot. Now, there was one with a pipe stem.
So did y'all get the other definition worked out?
Yes, sir. I
Don't
think we
worry
need
about it.
Just
Yeah, I'm not
just
sure
the
where
one
that one
about
went.
privacy fence, that's all we need.
It's
Yeah,
one
I
where,
might not have included.
it's
it.
one where one house is built behind another
Yeah, and so that would be more your flag lot.
flag, oh,
Is
that's
how I
a flag
define
lot,
those.
yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes they call them pipe stem.
Yeah, or even a panhandle.
Okay.
Okay, are we about there?
I'm done.
Is everybody awake?
Questionable.
Yeah, I think we lost a few on the way. I have not held a public hearing yet, have I?
No, you
No.
do not.
Okay, so we're gonna do that. Public hearing is open. Oh, we have a speaker, all right. Great.
Hi, my name's Amanda Pillai, 6900 Upland Lane, Colleyville.
Okay.
I just had a question on when these definitions go into effect, like we're doing all these changing for
Yeah.
when?
Tonight. I mean, if we vote to approve it tonight, it's in effect.
So then can they be retroactively applied to items that you guys have already had presented to you?
I believe so.
Are you referring to the previous example?
Yeah, to the tabled
Yeah.
item, so
Uh,
definitions now be retroactively applied to something that's already been presented before the
Yeah,
definitions
well,
were
it
changed?
depends on when the trigger is, and I'll have to ask city attorney about that. Actually, I don't know how to
Okay.
answer that question.
And the other question I had is, you guys made a change on the definition of sidewalks, but I didn't hear what the actual final definition was for sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
You changed it from street to right-of-way, but I just wanted to get the
Okay, we'll,
definition.
so when we get through with the public hearing, we'll answer that.
Okay, so
I'm
you
I'm not
can-
supposed to dialogue during the public
Okay,
hearing.
that's fine. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted, you guys just changed it, but you
Yeah.
didn't read what the final
Sidewalk, we'll
definition
talk
would be.
about
So
that.
if you
Yeah,
could do
okay.
that, would be great. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Mayor, I just wanted to advise, this is a public hearing, not citizen comments, so you can advise.
I mean, I
We-
thought so too,
we-
during
well-
public hearing, you can answer the questions.
We'll answer the question, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we'll do that anyway, but.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to speak? I see no one else wish to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Now, what do we do with the definition of sidewalk?
Well, Ben, if you want.
Okay.
Change, so where I say right-of-way, it previously
Yeah.
read street, says any portion of the right-of-way between the curb or the lateral line of the roadway and the adjacent property line intended for the use of pedestrians. So from anywhere between the edge of the street to the private property line where it's intended for the use of pedestrians.
Okay.
It's a pretty generic term.
Yeah, remind me why we did that.
Just to, I mean, we could go, you know, we do default to one of the dictionaries. I forget
Yeah.
which one it is. We
Okay.
could just default to that.
Yeah.
I just felt that it was a good definition to have to clearly identify what a sidewalk is. Sometimes we talk about trails or other type of pedestrian ways, but a sidewalk really is your pedestrian path adjacent to the street.
Sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, well,
As far as
yeah,
the
trail
sidewalk.
can wander off through the woods. Typically, sidewalks are gonna be on a street. They could be subdivision streets, it could be Highway
Right.
26, it could be a collector.
Yeah.
So is that,
As far, for regulatory purposes, the sidewalk, when we talk about sidewalks, it's adjacent to the street. Because, you know, you have a pathway up to your front door
So
or
what-
other things. Those are not necessarily sidewalks.
yeah,
Sure.
so,
Although they function
well,
the
so
same
what,
way.
let me, so I'm thinking a little bit bigger now. What difference does it make? Because the confusion is, I mean, citizens, you know, there's a dialogue about sidewalks, and we have a sidewalk map, a part of that, prioritized sidewalk map, and we have trails, and we have a trails master plan, and we talked about it last time, there's that kind of confusion. I think public hears sidewalk, and they think a strip of concrete, and you hear trail, and you think wider strip of concrete.
Right.
Or asphalt, or, I mean, wouldn't even have to be, it could just be designated, so maybe that's what you're getting at. It just could be designated, this is a piece of land that gives you a path to go from point A to point B.
Right, it's more for your transportation purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the
than
definition that
recreation.
you rattle off said, okay, if that path, and it could be grass. Could it be grass?
Well, I suppose it could be.
Under this
Sure.
definition, it could be, yes.
Yeah, that's what I remember thinking that last time. The definition is so general, it could be grass.
Could be pavers, could be
Yeah.
crushed granite.
Yeah, it could
Right.
be anything.
Sure.
So, does that lead to any kind of confusion? I mean, I'm actually okay with it. It's a very, very general definition, but I'm just trying to think through, will that lead to any kind of confusion from a citizen standpoint, talking about sidewalks, or when we talk about sidewalks? Do you understand what I'm trying to, and I don't know the
Yeah.
answer to that.
I would,
You say paved?
yeah, I would say paved, or like you paved or concrete, because if you're gonna get into any other surface, whether it be gravel, whether it be dirt, whether it be asphalt, I would traditionally designate that as a trail. And you have natural trails like you do at the Nature Center that are not anything more than just worn paths. And then you have trails like Cotton Belt, which is obviously paved throughout. And then you have trails along the roadway, which may also be concrete. So I would differentiate between the two.
But doesn't blacktop work the same way?
Yeah.
Well, but blacktop traditionally, in my opinion, has not been used for sidewalks.
So in my mind, sidewalk has a very specific definition or terminology. It's very specific as far as part of the roadway system. It's for
Yeah,
transportation purposes.
Yeah.
And, you know, ADA is going to require it to be concrete and to meet certain slopes so that it's accessible for.
Well, the only problem, I mean, I can think of an example where we're gonna have trails, and those trails are gonna run along a road for a ways.
And those won't necessarily be sidewalks, because we have sidewalk requirements as required in our land development code. And if it's not a requirement for transportation purposes, then it may not be a sidewalk. It may be another path or trail or something else.
I would disagree. It could also be for transportation purposes, but there's a difference between a trail and a sidewalk. Traditionally, it has to do with size and material.
Yeah.
Traditionally, a trail's wider.
Oh, well, I'm
Traditionally,
not,
sidewalk's 4 or
I'm not
5 feet.
arguing against that either. But for me, it's more, is it part of the public realm, true public realm, and the main purpose is for transportation, for the pedestrian. And a sidewalk will be that pedestrian element that's part of the right-of-way that's on the side.
Well, so we're gonna have along 26, we've got pretty wide, how wide are those?
think it's 8 or 10 foot.
Yeah,
Right.
so, I mean, I
Those will
tend
be-
to think about those as trails, but
Well, that's what everybody's calling them, is trails, because they're so
I mean, they
wide.
can certainly be a component, a segment of a larger, when I think of trails, I think of, well, you want to get to Park and you want to get to North Richland Hills, and you want to get on the Cotton Belt, but, I mean, it's transportation. I mean, you're walking down those, or riding bicycles down those trails.
Traditionally,
And
that's
I think
the
trails
extent.
are appropriate in
Yeah.
the right-of-way, and could also be considered a sidewalk, but when it's not in the right-of-way, it's not necessarily a sidewalk that will be part of the transportation
So
element.
when you say transportation, you're thinking that road, you're thinking part of that road system, are
Public
you?
right-of-way, yes.
Yeah, I think and again, I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but my experience has been the difference between the two is that a sidewalk is traditionally for pedestrian traffic only,
yeah.
whereas a trail includes bicyclists and other forms, skateboarders, rollerbladers, whatever.
Yeah.
And so the problem has been and that's why the width is different. It's
Yep.
designed for different modes
Yeah.
of pedestrian
Yeah.
traffic,
Yeah.
but both are still within the right-of-way.
Yeah.
They just have different,
But a trail's not always in the right-of-way.
not always, but as they relate to public use along roadways, they're traditionally in the right-of-way.
Well,
No, I don't
they
think
may
there's
be
a-
in a right-of-way, or,
They may be in the right-of-way,
you
but
know,
I don't
Cotton Belt
know that
Trail's in
there
the
is a
right-of-way.
requirement to have a trail in the right-of-way.
But then
But
they're on public property elsewhere. It doesn't really matter. You could have a sidewalk through a park. It's not in the right-of-way, but it's still a.
Sure.
still a
So-
sidewalk.
You can have trails on private property.
yeah, but so he said something that, so we're just talking about right-of-way. I think there's more than just right-of-way. Because to me, the width is part of it, because I tend to agree with you. You wouldn't want people riding bicycles on sidewalks, I don't think, but on trails you would. But you build trails wide enough to accommodate that.
In some
So a
places.
width
Bicycles
component.
are allowed on sidewalks. There's,
Well, I know they can go
different
anywhere
rules
they
for
want to,
passing.
but,
In some traffic regulations, they are not a permitted use on sidewalks. And the reason for that is
I don't agree.
because that's why you put bike lanes on the roads. I'm just saying, that's,
well,
because a
I
sidewalk,
think there's rules for if you come across a pedestrian, you get off your bike and
I agree,
you walk.
I agree.
That's not gonna happen.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying
They're not
people
gonna ride
follow
the-
it.
they're not
People
gonna
don't
ride the
always follow
sidewalk.
Speed limit either.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just pointing out the different
Maybe the children.
perspectives on it.
when could this matter? What situation could come up where this could matter?
Only way it would matter is in a subdivision design, in a grant application, or in a public improvement requirement. In other words, if you're,
We require sidewalks for new streets.
Yes.
And so this is basically saying you will provide the pedestrian element,
Yeah.
which is the sidewalk.
Okay, so so just me hearing that would say, well, okay, the minimum I have to do is a sidewalk.
Right.
I could make it, I mean, this size comes into my mind, I could make it bigger
Right.
and make
could
it
be
a
If you
trail,
want to do 10 feet.
and I satisfy that requirement.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
yes, you could do half on the right-of-way and half on your own property, but very few people, nobody would do that without giving an easement because they're taking
Well,
liability.
I mean, it still could be on the right of way. Might be enough right of way there to
Absolutely.
build an 8-foot wide, and
Absolutely,
I'm
but
just
then it's
trying to-
gonna
Well,
come down to us.
and again, that's the reason why the defunct plan that was thrown away in 2015, that we've decided to bring it back so that we could study it
Yeah.
again, so that we can see where those trails
Yeah.
and sidewalks actually fit. Even though there's a lot of fight in these neighborhoods, whenever you start talking neighbor to neighbor, a lot of them don't want them in their yard because then you have to start putting concrete
Yeah.
in their yards again.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's where that turmoil lied before, I believe, and I think that's why they threw that trail plan away, or that sidewalk plan
Yeah.
away. And that,
Yeah.
you know, now that we know that it's something
Okay.
that we want to do, we're bringing it back.
Yeah, Ms. Blau, could I ask you a question? So it sounds really simple, but in your mind, you've heard the discussion, does the definition that he proposed and we talked about last time, will that cause any issues or problems or concerns?
Well,
Or what should it be
I
from
mean,
your
I
point?
have the same concerns that it doesn't describe what the material is, that it just says
Yeah.
a walkway to the side of a street doesn't, or a right-of-way
Yeah.
doesn't, I mean, as you say, that could be grass is a walkway, gravel is
Yeah.
a walkway, so to me, that's not the definition of a sidewalk.
Yeah, so, well, I do, so that's a good point, because we say, okay, we build a collector street, and our ordinance say you gotta have a sidewalk. but it's got to be concrete. So you're right, a material does come into play. It can't be grass, right?
Well, according to this definition, it can be grass.
Well, I know, so that's what she's pointing out. That could be a problem, or that could be a challenge.
And that's why I would just add to the
I
definition.
mean, yeah, I would think, yeah, for that, and then also just, I know we kind of talked about ADA
Yeah,
compliance, that
right.
mean gravel's not ADA compliant, grass isn't ADA compliant.
Yeah.
You gotta, in my opinion, you have to think about those things.
Yeah, so, good point. So, since we require sidewalks for streets, those sidewalks are going to be concrete.
That's correct. This
Okay.
is just defining sidewalk. Our regulations for the construction of sidewalks and minimum standards for sidewalks is found in our land development code elsewhere, and it does have to be concrete.
Okay, so it's in the
So-
LDC. That's
Thank you.
concrete. Yeah.
So,
Good question.
so is there any reason, since we're talking about sidewalks in this definition, we don't say concrete? Is there any reason?
No, and that's why I would just add to the definition,
Yeah.
traditionally have a concrete nature.
Yeah.
You may have a situation where someone wants to put pavers in, but it may not be something you want to do because of ADA, or it may be something you want to do because it makes sense. But you can say traditionally of a concrete nature, I think is sufficient.
Yeah, that would work.
And we could
It's
do
gotta
that,
have
because
some
that
hard
doesn't set
surface.
us,
Hard
Pa-
surface.
Pavers are concrete, so there may be.
Yeah, they can be a masonry,
Yeah.
again, this is
Yep.
really intended just to define what it is. The regulation part is.
Yeah,
elsewhere.
however,
Because we have our ADAs in. I mean, they're in the compliance codes.
well, I think,
Right,
I
you
think
have
that,
multiple locations where it talks about.
I know, but I think for the purpose of discussion, it's real clear after this discussion
Yeah.
that a sidewalk is going to have some kind of hard surface, probably concrete.
Absolutely.
And so I think for the definition, we shouldn't just, the right-of-way part's fine, but we should
So just
probably add to it some
traditionally-
material consideration. you
Okay,
know, that's-
so traditionally constructed
Yeah,
of concrete.
Tradition, that would be fine. I think that'd work.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Now, are we done?
I think, actually, I just want to say, thanks for bringing that idea up. We're finally
Yeah.
getting some input from other people to tell us what their ideas are, and, you know, this is the first time in a while we've heard somebody say something, so,
Yep.
And
for
just-
for clarity.
Thank you.
And just a quick comment, everything we've done here, even at this last level of definitions, has involved a lot of cleanup from things
Yeah.
in the past. So
Oh, yeah.
a lot of things got pulled into definition
Yeah.
that, may relate to things a while back.
Yeah.
And so, thank you, Ben, for your patience and your guidance as we work through all these.
All these 2 AM mornings,
Yeah.
brother, we
And
we
Ben-
made it before midnight.
Yeah,
this
I
time.
got to tell you, I fully understand you're a planner and you have different perspectives, that's fine. I'm not a planner, I'm average Joe citizen, so that's why I say what I do.
There's nothing average about you.
Yeah, of course there is.
No, there's not.
Okay, so I think we're through it.
Yep.
Here's the big question, is are we comfortable that we've captured all the words? So you had a big definition, you captured that.
I've drafted it out for,
Okay.
Okay, good.
for approval.
All right, and so the last one we were just talking about, do you have the draft we wanted, traditionally concrete, we're adding in that definition of sidewalk, right? Okay, so are we good,
I think
good
we're
to
good on
vote?
that one, yeah.
Okay, all right. I guess if we had to, we can go back and watch this tape, what we said.
It'll be reviewed.
Okay, so if everybody comfortable, we're ready for a motion, we're ready for a motion, the second reading.
Hey, just real quick question
Yeah.
for Ben. Hey, Ben, I apologize, quick question. If there's a difference in interpretation as it relates to the chapter, any of the chapters, including this one and/or 3, where's the final determination lie?
I believe it goes to the board, well, now I need to look it up. I think in the past it was to the Board of Adjustment, but let me see if that has changed.
I apologize, just an important question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so their first item of jurisdiction is hear and decide appeals where it is alleged there is an error on any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the administrative official in the enforcement of this code.
So it comes to the council,
No, that's to the Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustments, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where does it reside on the staff level?
Say that again?
Where does it reside on the staff level?
I am the administrative official. Unless For most of the chapters. There might
Yeah.
be some specific languages where it might give it to
Yeah, well, I
Director
would
of Public
assume.
Works or to someone else, depending on.
Yeah, I would assume you're the first administrative official, he's the big boss, so it could go to him too.
That's the question.
I know.
They're looking
Yeah, it
for
could. I mean, administrative official, it was put in there to be general.
Bless you.
Well,
Bless you.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
How it's probably.
So that's
gonna
kind of
work
an
is
internal
They won't like
que-
what I say, so they'll appeal
Yeah.
to Jerry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but I'm saying, is there anything in the code that determines that I don't have a final say?
Well, if they want to appeal your decision, it goes to the Board of Adjustment.
No, I'm in the staff level. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yours would be.
Hey, Ben, one last thing. I know you're tired. I just want to make sure that in my mind, I'm having this, this correct. In the LDC, the sidewalks are already said to be concrete, so.
That's right.
Okay, because that's kind of a moot point that we were,
Right.
it was already concrete.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a
I just wanna-
requirement for
yeah.
concrete.
I thought it was, so,
It'll also be in the design standards of the subdivisions.
correct. Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, ready for motion? Somebody wants to do it?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. Are we going to call this an ordinance, or are we calling?
It's ordinance.
It is,
Yes,
okay.
ordinance.
The ordinance of O-19-2079, I ask for approval.
I'll second.
You have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood, a second by Councilmember Rigney. So would you open the vote, please?
As amended. As amended.
As amended, yes. They show it when it's ready.
Hold on a minute, mine's not coming up.
Not working.
You're fixing to get in trouble?
Mark and Christine.
You got the big boss down here now.
That was good.
Tammy broke it.
Gosh,
You can do a manual if we need to.
gosh.
Not coming up.
Not coming up?
Let me reset, she had shut down, let me just reset the vote, and y'all can vote again.
Okay.
Broke it.
Okay, for anyone watching, we're resetting the computer and we'll revote that. Okay, our vote's open.
For everyone, good.
Okay,
Yeah, I got it.
mine came up.
You got it, Tammy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And show it whenever it's in. Okay,
Yay.
that motion is approved, therefore the ordinance is approved. Yes, sir.
Mayor, can I just take a quick moment to thank Ben
Yeah.
for all the hard work?
Absolutely.
I mean, this was
Standing
a
ovation.
lot of effort, Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
And Ben has volunteered to help Ray on the next set of chapters.
Oh, my land.
Engaged. I can't see, is he making any hand gestures over there?
Oh, man.
So Ray, are you, Ben, are you done now? You got through all of yours?
No, we're going back to chapter 3 now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Very good.
We put a minute or two into it, that's all,
Yeah. Okay,
3 years worth.
yeah.
That's great.
That brings us to agenda 9, which is reports, library board minutes. If nobody has questions, we'll move on to 10. If we do not need 10, no ending resolution, so we'll move to 11. I'm going to adjourn if nobody objects. See, no objection?
Wait a minute, yeah.
George, be quiet.
We're adjourned. Thank you.